Chapter 84, Letter from Mom. The will had been read, and all the legal jargon had been spoken. A few signatures, some condolences from people whom I had never met before and who had never met my mother, so far as I knew. Suddenly, I was the proud owner of a single-story house with an attached garage, along with a barn and 4 acres of land. I idly wondered if it had a basement. I loved the idea of a cozy underground space. The feeling of the land's embrace around me. There was also the fact that I no longer had to worry about my college fund. Between her investments and her excessive life insurance, I was more than just well off. I was a bloody millionaire. Immediate assets in the bank accounts were in excess of $700,000 and my new stock portfolio was currently valued at just over $2 million. I planned to inspect the house and property tomorrow before the baseball game with Edythe. The lawyers told me that it was a maintained property so it should not have too many issues. Though I will have until next Friday to get all the utilities and such under my name to avoid a disruption in services. As expected, Mom left a bunch of fine china and family daughter heirlooms. Meant to be passed along the female line of the family. Bella would probably put them in storage for now. With Renee moving around so much they wouldn't last long at all under her care. Though Bella wanted to see them and get pictures for her mother at least before they were safely locked away. Other odds and ends, like some wedding dresses, were part of that collection as well as some baby blankets and family-made blankets. Sounded like stuff they couldn't sell in a yard sale to me, but I'm a guy so what do I know? Finally, the last thing the will addressed sat in my hand. A letter. I was fidgeting with it constantly. 1 minute rubbing my thumb over the writing on the envelope, another it was between my fingers being flipped back and forth. I wanted to open it and read what it said, but then I didn't want to. Every decision was followed by my moving the letter to a new position in my hand. I couldn't force myself to put it on the coffee table or let it go at all. It was as if I was afraid that if I let go of it, it would disappear. I even got a finger under the flap of the envelope to tear it open, but a dog barking outside made me pause. Did I really want a dog barking in the background as I read the final words of my mother? Now you're being stupid, I told myself. I took a deep breath and slowly, carefully, started to open the envelope. I pulled the letter out and was shocked to see her letter was in plain old college-ruled paper from a spiral notebook. It still had the torn holes along the left edge. I was expecting something more formal, like vellum or something. Wouldn't that fit the occasion better? This just seemed too ordinary. When I unfolded the paper, I saw her perfect looping cursive handwriting. She always said that if you write too fast, it's sloppy and that is a sign of a sloppy mind that makes quick decisions and many mistakes. She then turned it into a life lesson, just like life, if you make a mistake in writing, you often ruin everything you did before the mistake. All that effort has to be redone as you move to a new piece of paper. Life doesn't offer whiteout, and truly important documents with whiteout make it look unbefitting of the topic. Just remembering the lecture made me sigh and roll my eyes. If she had seen that, she would have smacked the back of my head. I had a half smile on my face as I started to read the letter. My dearest son, my little king. Ugh, I forgot she used to call me that when I was little. My middle name was chosen by my father. Naresh meant Lord of Man, the King, in the Hindi language. It was one of Johnny's favorite things to pick on me about when they first got together. I finally convinced her to stop calling me that about 1.5 years before she died. If everything is going as I wish, I am sitting next to you, and tomorrow is your wedding day. At least, that is what I am hoping for, as I sit and write this letter. Right now, I am watching you sleep off a sugar high from your 12th birthday party. You didn't even make it to your room, just passed out on the couch after spending 5 minutes telling me how you weren't tired. I can't explain how weird it feels to look at my little boy and try to imagine the man you will be when you finally read this. Your father was taken from us before you even drew your first breath, and though I shudder at the horror of my leaving you early as well, I must see that as a possibility and share with you the little that I know of him, and tell you about myself also. I promised myself that I would rewrite this letter every 4 years, so I would stay current in what to tell you. The first bit I thought would be easy, it's how your father and I met and how you came to be. But later on, I realized that a lot of what I was putting down wouldn't help you understand us much. You really don't need to know about his horrible sense of humor, one-liners and dad jokes, sigh, or his terrible luck at games of chance. Seriously, if he were alive today, I would take him to a casino and bet against him 4 times whatever he was betting, and we would be rich as can be. He always told me that he used up all his luck in leaving home and meeting me. So, I will make the early years short. Your father's name was Devansh Perth Raizel, he preferred to be called Devon here in America, though. We met in college, I was going for financial law, and he was doing the same, just different specialties. We were competitors at first, his written work was better than mine, but I had better articulation skills. We were placed together for a project and just stayed that way from then on. Now, don't think too badly of us, and don't do it yourself, but we were married in a inn chapel by an Elvis impersonator in Las Vegas during the spring break before graduation. You wouldn't believe how outraged that made your aunt, it took her years to forgive me for that. The reason we had made that rash choice was you. We were not as careful as we should have been, and you came into our lives. Devon was supposed to return home for some ceremony that was related to his 25th birthday that was still a year away. But he pushed that off so we would be married before you were born. He had some serious hang-ups about you being born out of wedlock and, well, I just can't deny him something he really wants. If I could, you would be a few years younger. It turned out to be a good thing though, as shortly after graduation, your father died. The only thing the detectives could come up with was some sort of wild animal attack. The detectives tried to spare me as much as they could, not wanting it to affect my pregnancy. Not knowing what else to do, I focused on you and your needs. Got a great job that was flexible with single mothers in an industry where that was rare. I tried to excel for you and the company together. I don't know if I should bother putting this in here, but it's on my mind, so I will. There is a chance that I have met someone I hope to share with you. His name is Johnny Track, he just started as a security consultant for the firm. Hopefully, he is a good part of our life by now, or I will just remove mention of him in 4 years when I write this again, but he excites me, so here's to hoping. If you are looking for more information on your father, I can only help a little. He planned to take me home to meet his family once you were born. I was hoping to meet them first, but he said there was some difficulty there because he didn't come home for his ceremony. It's in a small village he called Jiva's home, in the mountains of Nepal, in the Langtang district. He was the black sheep of the family according to him, they are all very ceremonial, and he hated the restriction of it all. If you go there looking for answers, I am not sure if you will be received well or seen as an interloper. Please be careful. I am leaving you my family home in Forks, Washington. Renee and I got it from our parents, and Renee sold her half to me to buy a house in Phoenix, Arizona, so she could be an elementary school teacher. If, for whatever reason, you go to Forks, you should look up Charlie Swan. He is a Forks policeman and was married to my sister for a time before she screwed that all up. I swear, if I had met that man first. Well, whatever. He is a good man and will help you settle in if that's where you end up. If not, I am sure he will help you sell the house if you decide to do that. I am not really sure what else to tell you, I don't know what circumstances led you to read this. Hopefully, you don't read it, and I will rewrite it yet again after your 16th birthday. Who knows, maybe your father's family will reach out to me by then. I have had word sent to them about you, but never heard anything back. I will end this in hopes it will never be read, but if it is, know that you are the sum of all the joy in my life. I love you more than any words could express. I will see you again. Be it as I blubber into a handkerchief as you tell some girl I do, or in the next world. I love you, my son. Mom. Chapter 85, Ambush killer. The morning sun was just starting to creep up over the horizon as I made my way through the spring forest. Life was teeming all around me, reviving after winter's frost had started to fade. My approach to the clearing ahead was slow and deliberate. Careful to keep my fur from brushing tree bark. I was testing the placement of my foot before shifting my weight to it fully. I passed just feet away from a squirrel that was digging near a tree trunk looking for an old stash of food. So busy, it didn't notice me passing behind it. The small breeze brought with it the sweet smell I had been expecting, and it made me unconsciously crouch just a little lower to the ground. A break in the trees allowed me to see my prey, but I made sure not to focus on it too intently. Prey and predators alike could sense when they were being targeted. Instead, I focused my attention on a rock just to his left. Knowing that I had the wind advantage to me but being smart enough not to come from the direction that the wind blew toward, tricky prey always kept an eye on that direction, knowing it was a weak spot. I was angled to just the right of his blind spot as I slowly got closer. All my movements were slow, but fluid. My eyes widened as he glanced in my direction. I held perfectly still. The prey looked away, and my back claws dug into the ground. The best time to strike was when the prey had dismissed an area they had just looked. The surprise of an attack from that direction would be that much more of a shock and delay its reaction more than normal. I burst from the side of the clearing in one mighty leap. My surprise had been complete. He tried to shift away and escape my grasp, but my right paw hit his shoulder and spun him to the ground. But by the time I had landed and turned towards his direction, he was on his feet in a runner's stance, teeth bared and hissing. I roared back in response, a challenge. He accepted and charged towards me. I let him take a few steps to make sure he was committed to his approach, and then I leapt towards him with my paws extended. He tried to reach for me, but my reach in this position was greater than his, and I struck his chest, flinging him backwards to slam into a tree. Before he hit the ground, I was on him with my snout placed at his neck, a low growl leaving my throat. "Whoa, Thomas! Easy there, partner. You just about gave me a heart attack, and that's an accomplishment." I backed up and let Jasper relax. Then made my change back to human form. "I thought for sure I had you on that first pounce. Your reaction speed is beyond astonishing." Jasper stood up and brushed some dirt off his back. "It's hardly fair that something so large was able to get so close to me without me noticing. The first 5 minutes, I was reacting to every critter sound in the area, and I had to tune so many out that I missed your approach once I tuned them out. If you weren't so big, I bet you could have gotten another 5 paces closer to me and I wouldn't have been able to react at all." I laughed. "Yeah, my size looks and sounds impressive. But it had a lot of drawbacks in sparsely forested areas. If I could catch you at a dead sprint inside 5 minutes, we could have a fairly even fight. But everything I have found online and in practice shows that I am an ambush killer for sure. I am not the wolves who can chase their prey down and tire it out by working together. Tigers are solo hunters, it's a whole different style." I walked over to my backpack and started to get dressed. Jasper just shook his head in resignation. "You managed to get the drop on me, even when I knew you were out there. So much for vampires being the top of the food chain. Your first strike would have done more than just knock me down if you had been using your claws. If you hadn't ripped my arm off, you would have pulled me in to go tumbling with you, and there is no vampire I have ever seen that will come out of that ball of fur, claws, and teeth in good shape." I laughed at a thought I just had. "Next time you and Emmett are going to go wrestling in the woods, let me know and I'll give him the surprise of his life." Jasper started to laugh along with me. "That's terrible, he would never forgive me." "I'm in." After a few moments of laughter, I slipped my shoes back on and stood up fully dressed. "So, is everyone good with Bella coming over this afternoon?" Jasper sighed. "Rosalie is going to be difficult, I would imagine, but Emmett will keep her civil. Esme is going to burst with happiness, and my little hummingbird is ecstatic. She can't wait to meet her best friend. I will be keeping my distance a bit, not to be rude, but human blood is still a major temptation to me. I thought about hunting last night, but I hate being the weak link, so I'm pushing myself a bit. You are stronger than you think, Jasper. When you need it, you will find your strength. I waved goodbye to him. See you tonight at the game. Edythe wants to look over my new house, and I am more than a little curious myself. I made my way back home, wondering if I would get in a shower before Bella woke up. Charlie had the weekend off work and planned to do some shooting with a few friends. I was aware of the irony that when Bella introduced Edward to Charlie later today that he would most likely be cleaning his guns. It would be far from threatening to Edward, but it would make Charlie happy and embarrass Bella at the same time, so no way I was spoiling that. I lucked out and no one was downstairs when I got home. I rummaged through the fridge and decided a good old ham steak and eggs breakfast would be a good start to my day. Pulling it out of the fridge and leaving everything on the counter, I went up to my room to drop off my bag. I saw Charlie's bedroom door was open and heard the shower going, so I figured I would start his breakfast the same time as mine. By the time he made it downstairs with a gym bag in hand, I had his coffee on the table and scooped 3 sunny side-up eggs onto the top of his ham steak that covered most of his plate. He thanked me when I placed it in front of him. I looked at the bag and saw it had a combination lock on it. What's in the bag? Got my service weapon in there and a couple others that I will be shooting today. I need to re-qualify for work and a couple others need a good cleaning after being stored for so long. Figure if I am going to clean them, I may as well send some rounds down range with them first. Firearms didn't hold much interest for me, so I just nodded and started my steaks. I had cut a portion out of one for Bella, knowing there was no way she could finish a full one by herself. When I sat at the table with my food, Charlie asked, "You headed to your mom's old house today?" I quickly swallowed the food I had been chewing. "Yeah, I am curious about it. Edythe should be by in an hour or so to go with me." He paused and looked at me. "Just remember, you are welcome to stay here as long as you want. Don't go feeling that you need to move out just because it's an option. But I also understand the drive to take control and live under your own roof. Either way, I will still be here for you. I plan to stay here at a minimum until this school year is over. I agree that it would affect my schooling to do it right away. Besides, I will probably want to do some renovations before moving in." The rest of the morning was just a quiet meal. Charlie insisted on washing up the dishes, so I went upstairs to shower and brush my teeth. By the time I was done, Charlie had left, leaving me to wait for Edythe to pick me up. I sat at the computer and sent an email to Renee and look up some more information on Nepal. Chapter 86, Go Mango. Going by the directions we had gotten, Edythe turned down a slightly overgrown dirt road just outside of town. We followed it for about a quarter of a mile before the road opened up to a clearing that was about 2 acres worth of land surrounded by forested area. It was a long, spread out, single-story home with a high-pitched roof. The house itself was painted brown, but you could tell that it was time for another coat. Edythe pulled up to the garage door and turned the engine off. I got out and waited for her to come around the car, reaching my hand out for hers. I wanted to walk around the outside of the property before going inside. We walked over to look at an old tire swing hanging from a nearby tree, and I made out what looked like an old treehouse that was falling apart. A sign stuck into the ground at the bottom was faded, but I could make out the words "No Boys." We found the water well and the septic system on the side of the house, well marked so there would be no accidents by running the area over with heavy vehicles. Edythe had to explain the septic system to me, as I was a purebred city boy who thought the sewer lines ran everywhere. Walking around the barn, we noted where a nest of bats was starting to make a mess and would have to be dealt with. Again, Edythe explained how to make homes for them instead of just exterminating them like most people did. A little male cat urine around the barn would convince the bats to find a new home. Opening the barn was kinda cool. There was no reason to do it, but I wanted both doors wide open as we looked inside it. Not that I was afraid of anything, I just always wanted to open a barn that way. The movies made it look much cooler than it really was. The door hinges were old, so they sagged a bit, making the bottom of the doors drag on the ground. As we walked in and looked around, we saw a bunch of random shelves filled with odds and ends. Everything was coated in a layer of dust that was thick enough to graduate from dust to dirt. At the back of the barn, we saw what looked to be 2 covered tables or something. When we made our way to them, Edythe was having trouble containing her excitement. "Those look like barn find cars, Thomas. There could be anything under those tarps. It could be a Plymouth Superbird, or a Ford Mustang Boss 429. I laughed at her excitement, or it could be an old beater work truck. She gave me a light shove. "Don't rain on my parade. Collectors like me and Rosalie live for finds like these. Her museum is 2 cars up on mine. I need a good find to catch up." I shook my head. The way this family competes over stuff is hilarious. But museums, really? Well, let's unwrap these presents. Maybe one will be a good car for me, so I don't have to rely on you to drive everywhere. You can have a turn at being the passenger princess for a change. We made our way to either side of the cover and started lifting at the same time. It was a dusty black color, and the symbol on it was Buick, I think. Looking at the other side of the flat trunk, I saw Grand National spelled out. I looked at Edythe, and she didn't seem too excited, so I figured it was a dud find for her. We both met at the front of the car and let the tarp pile up in front of it. Looking from the front, you could tell it had been in a wreck. The driver's side quarter panel had been crumpled and shoved into the wheel well area. The hood was crumpled enough to see the engine. Edythe stood there looking it over. "It's a Buick Grand National, but why the scoop on the hood?" I chuckled. "You sure that's a scoop and not just a wrecked hood?" Her eyes suddenly went wide, and she was standing at the driver's door before I knew it. Carefully, she opened it and started to look at the information on the door. Then she went to the serial number on the dashboard and started to do a little dance that was cuter than all hell. It brought a childish smile to her face, which made me laugh at her. In a shriek of happiness, she called out, "This is a 1987 Buick GNX. According to the serial number, it is number 547. The very last one ever made. Even with the wrecked front end, it is a great find, part of motor vehicle history. Miles say 2,300, it's a little high, but not too bad. First glance shows no frame damage. It's a remarkable find. I can't wait to see the next one. Rosalie would run here as fast as she could if I told her about this car being here." She ran back to me excitedly. "Can we uncover the other one? Please." As excited as she was about the first car, I didn't think it would make a good daily driver for me, so I was truly a little disappointed. Maybe I would have better luck on the next one. "Sure, love. Let's hope it's a collectible, but not one that will decrease in value because I want to drive it." What she said about 2,300 miles being high for the Buick told me I would be losing if I drove it around town after it was fixed. We just stepped over the front of the next tarp and lifted. The first thing I noticed was a table leg. Lifting the tarp up a bit more, Edythe sighed in disappointment. "It's just a table with a few boxes on it." What a tease, I thought. Well, that explains why these are still here. Probably no money in selling a wrecked car, and I am pretty sure my mom and Aunt Renee wouldn't have known anything about the car being special. Just bad luck. This one looked like a car cover but was just boxes on a table. We took the time to cover the car back up, close the barn, and make our way to the house. The front door had a combination lock on it to let the company that was caring for the house look after it. Inside was much less exciting than the barn had been. It was mostly bare. Charlie told me that most everything had been sold in an estate sale or Renee, and my mother cleaned it out. I couldn't even tell which room was my mother's when she was a child from what was left. That made me a little sad. Looking around, I could tell that the house needed a lot of work. The electrical was outdated, and the carpets were a mess. The floors creaked with every step. I held Edythe's hand all the way through the house when room allowed, taking pleasure in feeling her cold hand. The house had a total of 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. Well, 2.5, if you were technical about it. The garage was empty, but it looked like it could hold 2 cars easily enough. I stood in the front room looking out the windows. It needs a lot of work, but it's a nice house. I see why Mom kept it. I wonder if she would have returned here eventually. We could get Esme to come by and take a look. I bet she would have some great ideas. She would love the opportunity to work on something for you. I wouldn't want her to go through any trouble for me. I am sure she has her own things she likes to do to keep busy. Edythe smiled. Yet, she renovates old houses or draws concepts for new ones. So, no worries that you would be imposing. In fact, she would probably be sad if you didn't let her help. She chuckled after she finished talking. We locked the house back up, and as we started to drive to town, I was lost in thought about my vehicle situation. The wrecked car in the barn was a collectible, and I was happy to have it, sure. But I needed something to drive daily. That car will need a full-on collision repair and rebuild to fix rotted hoses and joints, so even if was willing to drive it once fixed, it would be a long time from now. We happened to be passing a car dealership when something caught my eye. Hey Edythe, you mind pulling in here? We have lots of time before the ball game, and I have been broke for so long that the thought of buying a new vehicle never crossed my mind. I think I would like to see what they have. After about an hour of window shopping, and another hour looking at models online, I was signing the paperwork on a 2005 Dodge Ram 1500 Daytona 4x4. I wanted the orange exterior with slate gray interior, so the dealership would have to order it in. The salesman called the color Go Mango, and they didn't think it would sell here in town, so they didn't order any for stock. He assured me it would arrive no later than next Tuesday evening. I knew it was a bit of a fancy splurge, sure to cause some talk in town. But I wanted to spoil myself a bit. I was sure my mom would understand. Edythe was teasing me about the splurge, but I brought up all the new clothes that keep appearing out of nowhere, and she looked away sheepishly. Chapter 87, Play Ball. After leaving the dealership, Edythe and I headed to her house. There were still a couple of hours until Alice said we could play ball, but I saw no reason to head home. I called Charlie and told him I would be eating with the Cullens tonight and playing a game of baseball in the evening. I didn't plan on being out too late, so not to worry. When we got to the house, we found out that Bella and Edward had just left. Rosalie was at the TV flipping through channels faster than I could register them. She looked frustrated and full of a nervous energy. Edythe distracted her with talk of the barn find earlier in the day. She got very excited when Edythe described the relative condition of the car, declaring that it wouldn't take much to fix it up from the sounds of it. The two women talked about it while Edythe started to cook a couple of thick-cut ribeye steaks, and Rosalie sat on the counter, going over ideas for the repair. Emmett walked over to me. So, you're going to try and play tonight? I smiled. Definitely, I am looking forward to it. Though I am not sure how I will stack up to your guys' reflexes. Edythe described to me how you guys set up and play, so all I can do is try my best. You could always run the bases in your tiger form, if nothing else. He said with a smile. I laughed. I would have to bring a suitcase for clothes or play naked. Not to mention that Bella has no idea about my shifting abilities. That would be a hell of a way for her to find out. Emmett shook his head. You should tell her. A family with secrets is a family in trouble. I do plan to tell her, but I wanted to understand this world before dragging her into it, you know. Learn what I had to do to keep her safe, well, as safe as she will let me anyway. The two were interrupted by Edward coming in the front door, soaking wet. Looked like the rain was coming down in sheets. Emmett looked to his brother. Thought you were bringing Bella back for the game. Edward sighed. Billy Black was at her house. He was looking to warn Charlie about us. I whistled. That's not good. It's possible the tribe may be pushing to see if you guys would act if they broke the treaty. They have multiple wolf warriors now, so it could be they are calling your bluff. Edward shook his head. No, I saw what Black was thinking. He thought I was fooling Bella, and he was willing to be punished for breaking the treaty to save his friend's daughter. Luckily, Bella gave him enough knowledge to make him aware she knew our nature and wasn't being forced. She may not have been very convincing about Charlie knowing as well. But Black is letting it be for now. A shout came from upstairs. Edward, I can hear you dripping all over my clean floors. Get changed and clean up your mess. Edward looked down at the puddle of water he had made. Yes, Mother. He raised his voice in acknowledgement, then in a softer voice, I knew I should have come in through the garage. Well, I kept you here talking, so I'll get the mess if you wanna go get changed. Edward smiled in thanks. I need to give Bella time to have dinner with Charlie, before picking her up. We will meet you all at the clearing, that is if I can borrow your jeep, Emmett. Emmett looked thoughtful. No problem with that, but I was up in that area last night, and you will have to park the jeep about a mile short of the clearing. It's too wet even for the jeep. Bella, good with you running her the rest of the way. I heard him say, I will get her there. As I moved off to get a mop to clean up the mess. As I was putting the mop away, Edythe called me to the table for dinner. While I was eating, I saw Alice and Jasper come downstairs from their room. They were dressed in a combination of white baseball pants and button-up white and black jersey tops, along with ball caps. That's a lot of white clothing for playing ball in the mud. Alice smiled at me. Most of the rain missed the clearing, so it will be relatively dry. The trip there will be muddy, but we won't be in a hurry. Jasper had an amused look on his face, and as far as clothing goes, you have your own set waiting for you in Edythe's room. Courtesy of my little hummingbird here. He wrapped his arm around the shoulders of Alice as he finished. I opened my mouth to start arguing about the clothes I had on being just fine, but Alice gave me a look, and I just knew it would be a wasted effort. So instead, I took a large cut of my steak and shoved it in my open mouth. Alice just nodded imperiously at me and led Jasper to the living room. After I had finished my food, I picked up my plate and went to the kitchen and started to run the sink to wash my plate and the pans that Edythe used to cook with. Before I could get too far into it, though, Esme appeared in the kitchen. Just leave the dishes, Thomas. I can clean up. No reason for you to do it. I smiled at the woman, but you said to treat this house as a second home. If I do that, then I need to do my share right. Or do you still consider me a guest? I knew I had her there, I wasn't willing to accept the double standards. If I was going to feel comfortable there, I had to do my share, especially when the dishes were only dirty because of me. She frowned a bit, and part of me wondered if this was because of the times she was raised in. Men in her era didn't do household chores in the kitchen. That was supposed to be women's work. Fine, you got me there. But scoot over, you wash, I will dry. Esme went for a middle ground. It didn't take long, and to be honest, I worked slowly just to drag the time out. Esme was asking about my house, and we talked about my thoughts on it. She said flat out that I would not be hiring some random contractors to do the work on it. She wasn't bossy or rude about it, but she had a way of making me afraid to disappoint her by not agreeing with her simple requests. This vampire had the mom roll down to an art. An hour and a bit later saw me running through the woods with the whole Cullen family minus Edward. I was in my tiger form, so I would have no trouble keeping up. Edythe was carrying my backpack, Jasper was carrying a couple of bats, and Alice was juggling 3 baseballs as she ran. Finally, Carlisle had a bag that carried the bases for the game. True to Alice's word, the clearing appeared to be dry, even with the heavy clouds floating overhead. I grabbed my backpack and ran into the woods to get dressed, wanting to be back with the group before Bella and Edward arrived. I rejoined the group and placed an arm around Edythe's waist and tuned into what was being discussed. Rosalie was talking to Jasper. you guys bugged me until I agreed to come, so I get to choose the teams. Esm, are you going to play your usual role as catcher/referee? Esm smiled, are you lot going to promise to not cheat, and behave in front of Thomas and Bella? Rosalie didn't hesitate, so Esm is the catcher, I am taking Jasper, Emmett and Carlisle. Alice, you get Edward, Edythe and Thomas. Carlisle took 2 bases and headed to what would be third base. Esm tossed a base to me and said, take this to where you figure first base should be. Just keep going until I tell you to stop. It will be about 70 yards. I grabbed the bag and started to run in the direction she pointed. But my head was reeling, 70 yards just to get to first base? What's that all about? God, I hope I don't make a fool out of myself. That's good, Thomas. Esm called out. I dropped the bag and looked around. This was one huge baseball diamond. I was going to have to get one hell of a hit to get to this bag before anyone else. Running back to the group, we all paused and turned our heads towards the incoming trail. The sound of a man's laughter had come from that area. I recognized it as Edward and assumed he and Bella were close. Finally, it's time to play ball. Chapter 88, Game Interrupted. Bella and Edward walked to the group as Edythe started to tell me the rules of the game. Because of how few people there are, we play a bit differently. The team that's up to bat is also the pitching side. If you do not hit the pitch, it's a strike no matter what, normal 3 strikes and you're out. There is no back fence, so no automatic home runs, no matter how hard you hit. We usually run 2 infielders and 2 outfielders, depending on who is hitting, that can change though. I looked over and saw Esm wrap a comforting arm around Bella. Then I asked Edythe, how much do you guys need to control your strength to not explode the ball when you hit it with a bat? She smiled, we have gotten pretty good at it, though Emmett pushes the limits. That's the reason we bring multiple balls. If it explodes, it's automatically 2 outs. Another thing you have to watch for is that Jasper likes to cheat and throw rocks at the ball while it's in the air. It changes the direction and makes it harder to field. But he is very hard to catch at doing that. Rose does the same thing but is less subtle. They all claim Edward and I cheat by reading where people intend to hit the ball. Gives us a jump on the ball direction. I laughed, well, do you? She smiled, hey, you're on my team. You shouldn't be asking that. You got any other questions on the rules? Alice called out, okay, we bet first since you chose the teams, Rose. Let's get ready, it's almost time. In no time, everyone was spread out, and I could see the formations taking place. I knew I wasn't strong enough to be considered a power hitter like I was used to, and I had to make sure that Edward went before me so I wouldn't hold him back on base running. I was surprised at how much I was looking forward to the game. What followed was semi-controlled chaos and lots of noise. Edward was the first to bat, and when he hit the ball, it sounded like a crack of thunder. I was surprised that Bella didn't have to cover her ears from the noise. The ball flew just over Rosalie's head and into an open spot in the left field. Jasper was on it in a flash, but Edward had cleared first base and was halfway to second before Jasper could make a play on the ball. Damn, that guy was fast. I was up next and was trying to decide between a pop fly to move Edward to third or try and drop it in the right field and see if I could beat Carlisle to first before Emmett got him the ball. I decided that either would move Edward at least 1 base, so let's see the pitch and decide. When I stepped up to the plate, I looked at Alice, who was at least double the normal distance from home base, and waited for the first pitch. I had no plan to swing at it, I first wanted to see a pitch and mentally prepare for the timing needed to hit. Emmett called from right field as he insultingly moved forward, "Come on, get special teams off the field. Bella has a better chance of getting a hit in this game." It made me laugh inside, but all I did was take my spot and nod to Alice. She wound up and kicked her leg like a professional pitcher and let loose with a fast strike, right down the center. When the ball was caught by Esm, I could hear the thud. I nodded to myself, faster than any pitch I had ever seen. But I think I can still get the bat around and hit. Strike! Esme called out. Send me another just like that, Alice. I shouted out. Emmett shouted out, come on, George Clooney makes a better Batman than you. Bella broke out in laughter, and I smiled and shouted, sure thing, Emmett. This one will be just like Sesame Street. Over your head. Rosalie let a chuckle slip at the banter, and Alice had to pause in her wind-up because she was laughing so much. She stood back up and sent the pitch my way, and I brought the bat around as fast as I could. The impact rattled my arms. All big league hitters say it's as much the speed of the ball coming in as leaving the bat that makes a long ball. With how fast Alice threw it, the hit actually launched the ball over Emmett's head. He started to run back, but the ball was going to hit the ground before he could get under it. Now, I just needed to get to the base before he could grab the ball, turn, and throw it to Carlisle, who was already at first base waiting. I put my head down and was running for all I was worth. Fortunately, when Emmett came up with the ball and turned, he was indecisive for a second on throwing to first or home. Edward had taken advantage of the pop-up and was already past third base and well on his way home. Thinking that stopping Edward from scoring first was better than stopping me from getting to first base, he tried to make the throw in time. I passed Carlisle without hearing the ball slap his hands and knew I was safe. I looked back to see that Edward had made it home, and Esme held the ball in her hand but was signaling safe at home. Yes, first point. Emmett kicked the grass in front of him, beginner's luck. Can't play too rough on your first at bat, kid. Next up was Edythe, and she got a hit into left field, but Jasper was on it too fast, and he connected to Carlisle on second before I could get there. Damn, they were fast. I trotted back to home plate and started some banter with Bella. Edward went to pitch for Alice as it was her turn to bat. We didn't get another score before 3 outs, and we took to the field. Emmett was an amazing power hitter, but with Edward's speed, he nearly always got under it and had no trouble getting the out. The game went back and forth, the score stayed close, and everyone was having a great time. A couple of times there would be a collision, and it was another reason they only played in thunderstorms. Because when they crashed together, it made the same racket as thunder. The trash talk was amazing. Emmett telling Edward he had seen better batter at a Walmart cake shop had me rolling. Everyone was smiling and laughing, this was turning into a great memory. Suddenly, Alice froze up at the pitcher's mound, and Edward rushed over to Bella. Everyone, circle up. Incoming! Alice shouted. The whole group turned serious in a second and rushed towards home plate. Alice was panicking a little, and Edward looked furious, standing next to Bella. Alice was mumbling, trying to describe what she had seen. They were leaving, but they heard us playing. They want to join. Something is wrong, parts of the vision keep going black. Then Alice turned toward me as if realizing that I was the problem. Carlisle asked, "Do we have time to get Bella and Thomas out of here?" Edward answered, "No. They are too close, I can already hear them. They are curious." Esme asked something that was too low for me to hear, so I turned questioningly to Edythe, who was clutching my arm. She whispered, she asked if they were hungry. And then glanced at Bella. "You should get close to Bella, you have no scent, so maybe you will help cover hers, or at least dilute it some," Edythe then recommended. Everyone else stood together and watched the edge of the clearing. They stood with practiced ease. I could easily see that Emmett was smiling as if in anticipation, Rosalie next to him, but somewhat behind him. Jasper was standing in front of Alice, no mirth on his face, just pure battle readiness. Carlisle stood slightly to the front of everyone as the spokesperson, and everyone built a wall before Esme, Bella, and me. When they broke into the clearing, they paused in surprise, from what I could tell. They came together for a brief moment and then lined up as they approached our group. Bella had taken her hair down like Edward suggested, and Rosalie scoffed at the futility of the action. She was really starting to push my buttons, Rosalie was. When they got about 20 feet from our group, they stopped, and one stepped forward. I was taking in their looks and was a bit surprised at how wild they looked. They let off an aggressive aura, dangerous and untamed. The burnt sugar smell coming off them turned my stomach and made the hairs on the back of my neck stand. "Hello, my name is Laurent," said the vampire who stepped forward. He was a black man with long corn-rolled hair, though his skin had the paleness of a vampire. He was elegant in his mismatched outfit of jean pants and a maroon jacket with no shirt on under it. I watched his eyes study Rosalie for a very long time. His gaze then passed over the rest of us, almost disinterestedly. His accent was hard to place, though if I had to guess, it would be French. Regardless, he carried himself well despite his worn clothing. Laurent then pointed to the woman to his left. "This is Victoria. She had candy apple red hair color that was curly and frizzy. It looked like it needed a wash, bits of dirt and leaves were caught in the wild mess. But she didn't seem to care. Her eyes were a little wide, and her posture made it apparent that she was ready to flee at a moment's notice. Her eyes flickered to everyone, never staying on one for too long. She seemed the nervous type." Laurent then turned to his right and continued, "This is James. He was a white man with golden hair that was pulled into a ponytail. He was clean-shaven and handsome in a savage sort of way. He was well-built and stood about 6 feet 1 in. He exuded confidence and nonchalance from every pore of his being. He was a predator and a very confident one at that." His gaze lingered on Emmett and took in his size and imagined strength. He looked more interested than intimidated, though. "And finally, this is his brother Jesse, they are Victoria's mates." Laurent finished his introductions. Chapter 89, Death and Disinterest. Carlyle began his own introductions as I focused on the twin brothers. Other than clothing, they looked exactly the same. But one thing about their appearance disturbed me the most. It was their eyes. Not so much the color of their irises, which were a dark red or burgundy color. No, it was something else, something I had seen years ago. I had once looked into eyes like that, eyes that didn't register me as a person. Those eyes that look at everything they see with a detachment, or indifference, like they were looking at something less than themselves, or something soon to be dead. Something else was nagging at me, something familiar that I couldn't place. It was when Carlyle brought up not hunting in the area to the group that it hit me. The jacket James was wearing, it was Wayland's leather jacket. I tensed up, and my anger started to flare. My protective stance over Bella was the only thing that kept me focused and tied to the spot I stood. Edythe POV. The game was going wonderfully. It was a piece of heaven to watch Thomas become part of my family. The seamless way he had inserted himself made me so happy that I was surprised I wasn't in a constant swoon. The light-hearted banter between Emmett and Thomas completely disarmed Rosalie, helping her to get over Thomas not being a vampire. The only family member who was still cautious of Thomas was, surprisingly, Carlyle. There was no dislike or anything, just a wariness about Thomas's aggressive nature at times, his anger that always seemed ready to take over. Yet, even with that on his mind, Carlyle looked more into helping Thomas work on his anger than trying to keep him away from the family. Away from me. Tearing me from my thoughts was the sight of Edward stumbling and then looking directly at Alice. I quickly looked at her and focused when I saw her eyes glazed over. I was pulled into a vision of 4 figures surrounding Edward, Bella, Thomas, and I. Thomas was shifted into his tiger form as Edward struggled with a blonde vampire in a black leather jacket. Another blonde vampire identical to the one Edward was fighting was working with a black vampire to attack Thomas. One was trying to distract, the other trying to attack, while I defended Bella. In a split second, Thomas screamed in pain, and blood erupted from his shoulder where a leg was just seconds ago. In my rage at seeing him hurt so badly, I rushed forward, only to be attacked from behind. A girl with red hair had her arm wrapped around my neck, and with a pull, my body fell to the ground. The redhead then threw my head at Thomas as another distraction. He was killed seconds later. The three joined in on the fight with Edward, who was quickly pulled apart but left alive to watch as Bella was being feasted on by the group of four. Then, in a blink, the four vampires were being led to our home by Emmett, Carlisle, Rosalie, Esme, and myself. Carlisle was explaining how we kept a permanent residence, and the group was hanging on to every word. The young-looking redhead was complaining to Rosalie about the lack of comforts of the nomadic life. The rest of the family was escorting Bella and Thomas home, with plans to guard them until the group of four left. Vision after vision rolled through Alice's mind, witnessed by me and Edward. I felt I would go mad several times as I watched Thomas die or get permanently maimed in so many of them. Edward was no better, being forced to witness Bella die in such a horrific way, time and time again. Then Alice concentrated on keeping the group together instead of splitting up, and the visions became more peaceful. Even the few that did end in bloodshed ended with us as the victor, though none showed a path where we all survive. These strangers were strong, and their diet did give them a slight advantage in one-on-one battles. Carlisle or Esme died in nearly every confrontation in the clearing. Seconds seemed hours as the visions stopped, and suddenly Alice shouted out, "Everyone, circle up! Incoming!" Instantly, everyone gathered around home base and started asking questions. Carlisle was the first to ask if they had time to get Bella and Thomas out of the area. Alice shook her head. "Something draws them to that group, I don't see what. They stay with us for now." Carlisle just nodded, trusting Alice without pause. "We will try and draw them to the house and end this peacefully. If any of my suggestions lead to avoidable bloodshed as I speak to them, snap your fingers twice, and I will change my approach. Will that work, Alice?" Alice looked away for a second and nodded her head. "That's the best approach I see." Damn it, I thought to myself. If Bella smells so good to those of us who have sworn off human blood, she will be nearly irresistible to these vampires. That is probably what leads them to us if we run. Luckily, she does not appeal to any of them like she does to Edward, or it would be a fight no matter what. I barely took in their appearance as they came into the clearing, already knowing everything about their appearance from the visions. Instead, I looked at my family. Edward was nervous, impatient, and angry all at the same time, shifting his posture constantly. This drew the eye of the redhead and made her nervous. I looked in her mind and felt her near worship of the twin brothers. If not for that, she would never have approached such a large gathering of covens. Well, that was interesting, they didn't realize we were one coven. Another tidbit that I picked up was her contempt for the soft-spoken Laurent. She saw him as weak, too weak to protect her. She was one who was only drawn to others in search of protection. That explained her attachment to the twins. In Alice's visions, I had seen just how strong they were together. I focused on Emmett next. He was standing slightly forward of the group, presenting himself as a challenge to the newcomers. His presence exuded strength and power, his mocking smile a challenge. Carlisle was the calming influence, Rosalie stood near me, and Thomas, who in turn stood before Esme. Edward was on the other side of Carlisle, and I could see he was reading everything he could from the strangers. His impatience and nervousness kept the new group off balance. Wondering why he was acting this way. Wait, I am missing something. Weird. I frowned and looked at my family again, and then realized what was so off. I glanced at Jasper for just a split second before I was overcome with a sense of boredom, of complacency and disinterest. Nothing interesting in that direction at all, so I turned away. Then it hit me. Jasper was a very imposing figure with all his battle scars. His very presence was a cautionary tale of the battles he had survived. No one wanted to take their eyes off someone who was so obviously a veteran of many vicious battles that could leave the marks he carried. I also realized that I hadn't looked at Alice or even Bella. Realization dawned on me. Jasper was using his emotional control to make himself and the others so uninteresting that they didn't warrant a second glance. Virtually making them invisible. How long had he been working on this as part of his abilities? If things turned confrontational, he would appear virtually out of nowhere to their senses. I silently urged Carlyle to hurry and lead this group away, before something could focus their attention on seeing past Jasper's ability. Carlyle's voice was steady as he spoke, "We were just finishing up with the game. Now that the storm is passing, it would draw too much attention to continue. I would like to offer you a chance to clean up at our house if you would like, though. Some fresh clothes after cleaning up would surely be welcome." Laurent looked at his group and saw that even Veronica was looking happy at the chance to clean up, so he decided to accept. "We would be delighted to accept your most generous offer. And I, for one, would love to hear how you are able to keep something like a permanent residence. I have never heard of something like that before." Carlyle smiled. "Yes, we are told we are unusual. But there is another group like us up near Denali, Alaska." Carlyle gestured in the direction of the house and started to lead the group that way. "Murphy's Law states that anything that can go wrong, eventually will go wrong. But I would like to make an amendment to that law. My amendment would be to add, at the worst possible time. Murphy, or whoever represented the will of that particular law, just sneezed." Chapter 90, Protecting Bella. Thomas POV. Just as the new group was stepping to follow Carlyle home, a gentle breeze blew through the clearing. A mild flutter, brought about from the tail end of the storm front, gasping its last gasp before dissipating. So mild, so inescapable. Bella's scent, fresh from her relaxing posture as she saw the potential for violence waver, wafted directly into the strangers' faces. All four of them took a deep breath, much like a human walking into a fresh bakery. Laurent and Victoria showed a predominantly confused expression by the delicious smell coming from nowhere. Jessie and James, however, shifted immediately into hunting mode. Jasper's camouflage of disinterest around Bella shattered immediately. Their focus on her smell caused them to ignore Jasper's abilities without even knowing they were doing so. Jasper kept it up around himself and Alice, regardless. Just in case he could use the surprise to his advantage. James stepped forward to be met by Edward as he, too, crouched forward and bared his teeth, a feral snarl ripping from his throat. Loud and menacing, more so than I or Bella had ever seen in a Cullen vampire. James pulled back in shock, but Jessie didn't even pause. He stepped around his brother and tried to brush past me to get to Bella. My anger ripped through me, and faster than ever before, my clothes exploded around me, and I struck forward with my left paw. The impact blasted the unprepared vampire back, and I tensed to charge forward. I was furious with myself. I had failed to use my claws in that attack. I had grown so used to not using them during training with Jasper and Emmett that it was an unconscious choice this time. This piece of shit had dared try and harm my sister, nothing would save him from my jaws. Before I could act, though, Alice was standing in front of me with her arms out, blocking me. I roared in frustration at the loss of my prey. It may have well been on the other side of the world now, as Edythe joined Alice. So much for nothing saving him, I thought in frustration. Carlyle spoke in the most commanding voice I had heard from him to date. "The girl is with us." James and Victoria skittered to where Jessie had landed, the whole time keeping an eye on us. Not daring to turn their backs on such a threat. Laurent spoke in surprise, "But she is human." He was careful to keep his stance neutral, afraid any aggressive movement would erupt in violence, and he was the closest to our group. I could hear Bella's panicked breathing and feel her eyes locked on me in confusion. Jessie came to his feet in a furious jump, shoving both James and Victoria away. He looked at me with so much concentrated hatred that he made Johnny seem a loving parent in comparison. James looked at us with something I would have said was foreign to those eyes just moments ago. Excitement. He was quickly whispering to his brother, and what he said must have been the right thing. Jessie calmed down, and the same look of excitement flashed across his face as well. Edward drew in a breath and growled yet again. He either heard what they said or read it from their minds. Either way, he wasn't happy about it. Laurent, still trying to keep the peace, spoke, "It looks like we have much to learn from you." His tone a peace offering. Naturally, the girl will be off limits. Both James and Jessie looked at him in disgust, without a word spoken. Everyone understood the looks they were giving Laurent. "You dare speak for us?" Then their eyes turned cunning, like they were making plans as they went. Laurent, seeing this, knew he would no longer be safe with the group. That much was obvious. "How about I go with this group and see what they have to offer us, and then I can find you three afterward?" James nodded his head, "We will see you soon." His tone was ambiguous at best. Then they turned to head back into the forest. Alice paused, and her eyes went out of focus for a moment, then she nodded. "Emmett, Edward and I will escort Bella out of here. The rest of you can head home. It is safe." I looked at Edward and shouted out in my mind, "Tell Bella all you know of me and explain that I was waiting until I knew more before endangering her in this world. Do not say anything to Charlie, I don't think he could handle it yet." He nodded and pulled Bella around to his back and took off with Emmett in tow. Alice had a brief conversation with Jasper before kissing him and following Edward. Leaving the forgotten baseball equipment, Carlyle looked at Laurent, "Follow me and I will show you where we live." The run back was quiet but intense. I kept every sense heightened to the max, in case we were followed. There was no way they wouldn't find the Cullen house if they looked, but I didn't want them to ambush us. About halfway home, Edythe spoke softly. "Victoria is following us. She has no plan to do anything but gather information right now. She believes James and Jessie went to pick up Bella's trail. Though she also believes that Jessie is more interested in hunting you for the humiliation you dealt him. James is solely focused on Bella and Edward. He has never dealt with someone denying him what he wanted. Even Jessie, his older brother, differs to him. Edward protecting Bella from him has triggered an obsession. He now sees this as an exciting game of a large coven of unknown and strong vampires protecting one weak link. I will learn more if the others come within my range, but that is all I can get from Victoria's mind right now." I thought back to her, "We need to gather and work out a plan. Alice has one, I am sure. I won't lose Bella, Edythe. I will kill them all before that happens." Edythe's voice was filled with worry, "You can't do that, Thomas. Alice had many visions of you fighting tonight. In nearly all of them, you lost. Several times you died." My mind raced. How many of the fights you saw were direct confrontations? Group on group? Were any of them in an ambush situation from our side? I can believe that they are better than me in a face-to-face fight, but even Jasper couldn't predict me in a situation where I hunted him. My species is an ambush killer, I will have to play to those strengths. All the fights I saw were in a group, we were trying to protect Bella. These vampires are not like us, Thomas. They are vicious and well-practiced fighters, but our numbers caused them to talk with us first. Jessie lives for the challenge of battling other vampires. I think you are an unknown, thrill to him. Add in that you embarrassed him in front of his family. We were almost to the Cullen house. Hunter and hunted can be a matter of perspective at times, Edythe. I will play to my strengths when I can, playing into theirs would only be a desperate move. Alice gave us a chance to equalize the playing field. Without the surprise of them coming up on us, we have a good chance at defending ourselves. We need to get Bella to safety first. She is not able to fight back at all. She is an exposed nerve right now. You must be careful, Thomas. Watching you get hurt and dying so many times has me petrified. The group had moved to a walk as we entered the yard of the Cullen house. I nuzzled into Edythe's chest with my head and thought of every moment that I have had with her that brought me joy and comfort, letting her share those thoughts. Then I entered the house and went directly to Edythe's room, where she had a dresser full of clothes for me. As I looked through the clothes, Edythe entered just moments after I had slid on a pair of shorts. I didn't bother with a full outfit for now, there was a large chance I would be shifting again tonight. My conversation with her on the way back had left me with an idea, and I needed to talk with Jasper about it. Pausing to give Edythe a kiss, I went downstairs to find Carlisle and Esme in conversation with Laurent, while Jasper stood nearby. I could feel my sense of disinterest in Jasper as he stood there. It battled with the questions I had for him. I assumed he was trying to stay ready for any treachery from our guest. Catching Jasper's eye, I motioned for him to follow me to the garage. "Stay with your parents for a minute, love. I have an idea I need to talk to Jasper about." She nodded, and Jasper followed me. "What's on your mind, Thomas?" Jasper asked as the door shut. "Edythe says the woman, Victoria, is out there watching us. What are the chances you can keep up whatever it was that you were doing to stay out of focus with that group?" Jasper thought for a bit. "It's harder the more I move about, but if I stay slow, it should be doable on the move. I was able to sneak up on you when you knew I was coming. I think between the two of us, she should pose little threat. The loss of her may back the other two off enough to get Bella to safety." Jasper's smile was slightly vicious. "You are quickly becoming my favorite sibling, Thomas. Defensive battles were never my forte." I chuckled. "Let's get with Edythe and see if we can pinpoint where Victoria is watching us from. With surprise on our side, I would bet that taking any two of them out between us would be possible." Jasper shook his head. "Emmett will be so mad he missed this." Chapter 91, Worth Protecting. Jasper and I entered the living room. I wanted to give Edythe a heads up on our plans before heading out. "Jasper and I have decided to take the fight to them and pick off Victoria while she spies on us. Can you tell where she is by her thoughts?" Edythe shook her head. "Not even a minute ago, she had a panic attack and ran away. She is no longer within range of my abilities. Her last thought I was able to hear was to regroup with Jesse and James. Damn, that's an opportunity lost. Wonder what scared her." I saw Jasper frown as well. It was a good idea wasted now. About 20 minutes later, the sound of Bella's truck, followed by Emmett's jeep, rumbled through the dark night. Once that noise stopped, Emmett came barging into the house carrying Bella protectively in his arms. When he saw Laurent, he growled in warning as he let her slip from his protective grasp. Rosalie appeared suddenly in the room from upstairs at the same time Edward and Alice came in from outside to stand at Emmett and Bella's side. Rosalie was switching between inspecting Emmett for any harm done to him and looking furiously at Bella. I assumed she placed all the blame for the night's activities squarely on her shoulders. Carlisle gestured to Emmett, trying to calm him as Edward spoke. "They are tracking us, Jesse and James," later joined by the woman. "They are setting up in the area to monitor and plan for the night." Bella convinced. He paused as he looked at Laurent, unwilling to reveal anything further to the vampire, unsure of his loyalties. Laurent spoke to fill the silence. "I was afraid of that. Your defense of the girl set off his hunting instinct. He will be relentless until he succeeds. He is smart, patient, and will do anything to get what he wants. Jesse is more of the fighter type. He likes to rush in with a half-formed plan. And you cannot underestimate Victoria. She is vindictive and has a cruel streak." Emmett spoke with a smile. "Oh, we will stop them. You can be assured of that." Alice walked to Jasper and whispered to him, and the pair quickly moved out of the room and upstairs. I had wanted to ask her some questions about the visions she had. The most curious thing was that she could suddenly see me in the visions, according to Edythe. I wanted to know if that was only while I was shifted, or if her familiarity with me had allowed her to see me fully now. Laurent looked at Bella skeptically. "Are you sure she is worth it? Worth going against them for?" My temper flared, and Edythe had to hold me back as Edward hissed at the question. Carlisle spoke softly, yet firmly. "She is family, she is worth protecting, and more. You now have a decision to make, my friend." Laurent, with doubt in his eyes, shook his head. "I will not fight them. Though I admire what you have built here, and want to learn more, I think I will be better served by heading to the coven near Denali. Edward looked at him for a time. I assumed to make sure he was telling the truth. If you head due north from the corner of the house, you will be able to bypass a gap between Jessie and Victoria. If any of them catch you, they will try and delay you long enough for one of the others to join them and kill you. They are not a forgiving bunch, and failure to follow their lead immediately has placed you as a target in their eyes. Laurent looked genuinely surprised at Edward. Thank you. I wish you well. Then he slipped from the back door and headed out in the direction Edward pointed him. I had a brief moment of ruthlessness and wondered if it would have been better to send the vampire directly to them to tie up loose ends. I shook the thought from my head. It would have been possible that they would have forced him to fight against us, seeing as we had the greater numbers instead of killing him right off. At least this way, he is off the board and no longer a concern. Suddenly, Bella had one of those oh yeah looks on her face and stomped in my direction. What the hell, Thomas? She hit my chest with an open hand. Seriously, a were-tiger? You have known for how long, and I find out by you changing in front of me? Thanks for protecting me, but still. You don't hide shit like this from me. I pulled her into a hug. Sorry, sis. But there are rules in this world. I wanted to learn what was safe for you to know before doing something that would have repercussions neither you nor I understand. There is so much I don't understand. In a muffled voice, Bella spoke while I was hugging her. I am scared, Thomas. You guys could be hurt because of me. I released her from my hug and took a half step back, then looked her dead in the eyes, and before she could react, I flicked her forehead with my middle finger. Hard. Of all the stupid, idiotic things you could say, that takes the cake. She staggered back and grabbed her forehead with tears in her eyes. You would stumble, into danger to save someone else, and moments later demand no one else place themselves in that same danger to help you. Despite what you may think, Bells, you are important to the people around you. I would trade my life to save yours without a thought. Just as you would for any of us. So, drop the martyr act and accept the help you are being offered freely. I glanced at Rosalie, mostly freely. Alice and Jasper came down from upstairs, each with a bag in hand, shortly after that. I looked at the group and asked, so what's the plan? Esme went to the wall and typed in a code that saw the house go into lockdown with metal shutters and all. Then Edward began to speak. It's Bella's plan actually. She shouted at Charlie that she was leaving Forks and returning to Phoenix. Jessie and James were there and overheard the discussion. He looked at Edythe for a moment, and her eyes widened and then turned sorrowful. The plan now is to set up distractions, multiple groups going different directions. Bella will hang back with Alice and Jasper, and once Alice sees an opening, they will go to Phoenix and lay low until we can hunt them down and end the threat. I smiled. That's smart, going where you said you were while they think it's just a smokescreen from the beginning. Edward continued, my thought is, me, Thomas, Emmett and Edythe run south. Edythe wearing some of Bella's clothes for the scent. Carlisle, Esme and Rosalie, wearing Bella's clothes she has on now, drive to the airport in Port Angeles in the jeep with the top down to spread Bella's scent. Then, once we have them looking at those two, Alice and Jasper take Carlisle's car and drive to Arizona. Jasper was able to hide from them, and they wouldn't think that we would leave Bella with just Alice for protection. They should think she is just running on her own if they even realize she is leaving at that point. Emmett spoke from there, and once Bella is clear, we start hunting them. While letting Charlie see that Edward is still in town, moping because his dear Bella ran from him like a frightened bride in the spring. Bella, with the red mark still on her forehead, looked sadly at me. You need to be there for Charlie, Thomas. I hurt him, he was trying to stop me, and I had to fight dirty. I used the same words Mom used on him when she left him. A tear fell when she looked down in shame. It made me mad that she went there. It would have been better to have Edythe compel him than to do that to him. Some wounds don't heal without major scarring. And she just took a chainsaw to his biggest scar. You will have many fishing trips in your future to make up for that, sis. That was not fair. I can see why you thought it was necessary, but not fair. Edward spoke to Rosalie, take her upstairs and trade clothes. His tone made it clear he wasn't asking. She stared back at him with livid disbelief. Why should I? She hissed, what is she to me? Except a danger. A menace you are choosing to inflict on this family, on all of us. Rose. Emmett murmured, placing a hand on her shoulder that she immediately shrugged off. My dislike just took a huge leap forward for this spoiled little princess. An angry growl escaped my throat. Instead of replying, Edward turned his eyes away from Rosalie like she no longer existed or was no longer worth his consideration. Esme, please. Esme quickly picked Bella up without warning and ran upstairs. Rosalie no longer looked so sure of herself. She looked like she was ready for an argument, or even for Edward trying to convince her by begging. Instead, what she got was disregard. That clearly made her worry. Even Emmett's eyes showed disappointment in her words and actions. Chapter 92, The Family Separates. Edward then reached into the bag he had brought in. It had more of Bella's clothes in it. Taking an outfit out, he tossed it to Edythe. Put these on, sis. We will be the biggest and strongest group. We should draw the attention of the brothers, considering we will have Thomas shifted and you in Bella's clothing. Edythe nodded. Jesse's focus is squarely on Thomas. He was enraged that he made him look weak in front of his coven. He is stronger than James in a fight, but James has the better planning mentality. I would put next week's chores on the twins following us, if not all three of them. I spoke out, once we know Alice, Jasper and Bella are away, I say we turn the tables and start hunting them. Carlisle looked sad but sighed. I don't like it, but we protect our own. Your safety comes first, though. Edythe returned along with Bella and Esme. I chuckled at Bella wearing Esme's long pants. As Edward spoke to Carlisle and Alice, I addressed Bella again. You need to stay safe, sis, and let them protect you. Don't go doing anything dumb. She grimaced at me. You too, Thomas. Even if you are a super cool looking tiger thing. Be careful and take care of Charlie for me. I shook my head. I am calling myself a shifter. And I will look after your dad. I emphasized the word dad. I really didn't like that she called him Charlie. Some people don't realize how lucky they are to have family that is able to be there for them. I turned and focused on what Edward was saying. They have moved out of my range, but I guarantee they can see the house. They will be able to see us leave. Just to go over the plan a final time, my group will run to Seattle. Straight to the airport, then back. We will have to move slower than full speed to make them think we have Bella with us. Even carrying her at full speed would hurt her, and they won't fall for that. I interjected at that point, I won't be able to maintain my full speed all the way to Seattle. I am not a long-distance runner. Also, I just realized that I should let Sam know we have carnivore vamps in the area. Edward listened and then swore, damn, that changes things. Alice, what do you see now? Alice shook her head. Nothing until we decide on a course of action. Let me shift real quick and see if Sam is patrolling. If not, we will have to call Billy to get the word out. Be right back. Leaving then to readjust the teams, I went upstairs and took off my shorts and shifted. Unfortunately, I didn't feel the pressure against my mind that signaled he was also shifted. I pulled my shorts back on and went down to see if anyone knew how to get hold of Billy. Carlisle gave me the number, and I dialed it. Black Residence. Jacob had picked up. Hey Jacob, it's Thomas. I am looking for your dad, is he there? Yeah, he is outside at the fire pit with Sam. Want me to go get him? Actually, it's Sam I really need to talk to. He said to come to him with questions about a trail he showed me. No problem, I'll go get him. Just a few moments later, I heard Sam's voice on the line. Thomas? Jacob said you were looking for me. I heard Jacob in the background telling Sam to ask about Bella, so I couldn't say it outright. Yeah, you are the guy to talk to about the forest, and I was wondering what it meant when I smelled a burned sugar smell. I could smell it in 4 different places today, but one of the spots went away. The other 3 spots seemed to be sticking around. I heard him take in a deep breath. Hey Jacob, you want to take the food to your dad? I will be a couple of minutes here, and then I'll join you guys. He must have been waiting for Jacob to be out of earshot. Okay, what's going on? I quickly explained what had happened and what steps we were taking. Main reason I'm calling is to warn you. Make sure you and Jared run together, and be careful. These vamps aren't like the Cullens, they are everything your elders fear and more. Thanks for letting us know. I will inform the council. We plan to do something permanent about these visitors. I will give you a heads up if there is a change. Catch you later, man. Sam hung up the phone, and I turned to the group to see what had been decided. The new plan was for Emmett and Edythe, who was wearing Bella's clothes, to take the jeep to Port Angeles with me. Once there, Edythe will buy a few tickets to different locations, and then we will return and deal with Charlie's protection. I plan to use the drive to figure out how to handle his questions. Part of me wanted to tell him everything, but then my conversation with Edythe about the rules of turn or kill those humans who know made me hesitate. Edward, Carlisle, Rosalie, and Esme in Bella's clothes would run for the Seattle airport and do the same thing with buying multiple tickets. Though they would have to move slow to keep the farce of a human traveling with them. Then they too would return so Edward can put in his appearance in school. Once they could confirm we were being followed, Alice, Jasper, and Bella would make their drive to Arizona. As we decided on the plans, Alice filled us in on her visions. Edward's group was the first to head out, being the biggest and most obvious. We were all hoping that they would draw the brothers. Emmett looked a bit lost as he watched Rosalie run with the first group. He may have been a little irritated with her, but he still loved her dearly. He was also a little sad that they would be taking the first crack at going after the hunters when they got a chance. 10 minutes later, Alice gave us the signal to start our drive to Port Angeles. When we were about 15 miles out of town, Alice texted that Victoria was tracking us from a long distance. She was staying far enough back that if we tried to turn on her, she would be able to run away and get to the ocean before we could catch her. Once we drew her far enough from town, Alice and Jasper would make the run with Bella. Once my group returned from Port Angeles, there was a discussion about heading back to Charlie's for the night. I had to check on him and make sure he knew I was still here. Edythe and Emmett would be in the woods near the house until the rest of the coven returned, so we could protect each other. When I got home, I realized I had overlooked the pain our actions had caused one of the most important people in our lives. Charlie was passed out on the couch with clear tear tracks staining his face. I knew it had only been a few hours since Bella left the house and, in that time, Charlie had finished a bottle of Jack Daniels that had been more than 3/4 full last I had seen it and had 9 empty tall boy Reiner beer cans littering the floor in the living room. He must have tried to drink everything as fast as he could to shut the words she used against him out of his mind. I thought about calling the station to get Ken and Jeff to cover his shift for tomorrow, even went so far as to pick up the phone. But then I realized that there was no way this stubborn-ass man would take the day off to recover. I put my head on the wall and cursed. Stubborn-ass swans. Both of you. I moved around the front room and picked up the cans and the empty bottle. Put it all in the recycle bin and then went to pull Charlie off the couch and get him upstairs. I first pulled his boots off and put them where they normally went, and then wrapped his arm over my shoulder and stood him up. "What's going on?" Charlie asked as I started moving him. "Come on Uncle Charlie, I am putting you to bed. Ken's go to sleep. Bells might come back." He objected. "It's okay, Charlie, she will be fine. She just scared herself tonight, we need to let her run and get it out of her system. I got Edward to calm down and give her some time, now we just need to do the same." "Did he hurt her?" Cause ill shoot I'm iff he did. No, Charlie, this caught him by surprise as much as it did you. He would never hurt her. The guy is obsessed with making her happy. I managed to get him to his door and open it with him still held up in my other arm. Walking him in and laying him on his bed, he didn't bother taking any of his clothes off, just pulled the covers up to his chin. Why? Why do the girls I love leave me like this? Even the words were the same. Am I so broken that every woman sees the same thing wrong with me? Chapter 93, Meeting Jessie. The next morning, I woke up with Edythe in my arms. I hugged her tighter for a moment before my bladder made me get up and get my morning routine out of the way. Ignoring the impulse to check up on Charlie, I returned to my room and then Edythe and I went downstairs to talk. So, what happened last night after I fell asleep? I asked quietly. Just outside of Seattle, James and Jessie stopped following Edward's group. They passed through some rain coming out of the Olympic National Park and it must have cleared Bella's scent from the clothing Esme was wearing. The group turned and tried to hunt the brothers, but that proved a waste of time. No one in the family is any good at tracking. I decided I wanted egg sandwiches this morning, so I broke the yolk in my eggs before flipping them. So, what's the plan now? First, we need to be seen at school, but I bet Edward is going to gather a group to go hunting tonight. Knowing him, he thinks that if he can keep the hunters focused on him, then that will make Bella safer. Not a bad plan, but what is he going to do if they get bored and disappear? Edythe sighed, all we can do at that point is rely on Alice and hope we can stop them. I grabbed the bread out. You said that the one brother Jessie was fixated on me, is there any way we could use that to split them up? Edythe thought for a few moments, that's a good probability. The little I could see in their minds, they each feel their target should have priority. Like I said last night, James loves the chase and the challenge he finds there. But Jessie loves the battle at the end of a chase. Some faint noises came from upstairs, alerting us that Charlie was starting to move around. Edythe stood and gave me a kiss. I will be back to pick you up for school. I walked her to the door and watched her meet up with Esme and Rosalie, then run off as I grabbed the paper and returned to my waiting breakfast. I knew Emmett and either Edward or Carlisle were still in the woods watching over the house in case the brothers came for me. Just after I finished my sandwiches, Charlie came stumbling downstairs with heavy bags under his eyes and a slightly green tinge to his face. He went straight to the coffee machine I had started for him and poured himself a cup and plopped into his usual chair. He took a sip and looked at me with his bloodshot eyes. What the hell happened last night, Thomas? Have you heard from Bella? I took a deep breath. We were all enjoying a friendly baseball game and Bella was even getting into it. I don't know when the last time I saw her so happy, Charlie. When we were packing up, we made plans to go to the Cullen house and watch a movie before coming home. I didn't know anything had gone wrong until hours later when Edward came home in tears. When we finally got him to talk, he said that Bella broke up with him and never wanted to see him again. He said that they were having a good night until he said something along the lines of how nice it would be to do this for the rest of their lives. Then she demanded he take her home right away and went all quiet on him. Once he brought her here, he was trying to get her to tell him what he did wrong, but Bella blew up at him saying she wasn't going to let her life get ruined for a kitty crush. Charlie sagged in his seat when he heard that, but still stared at me as I finished the story. He said he drove around trying to clear his head before returning home, that's why I didn't know until it was too late. I called Bella and tried to talk her into at least coming back and picking me up, but she went all stubborn on me telling me not to ruin the good thing I had going with Edythe. When I pointed out the stupidity of her being afraid of ruining her life with someone while still being young but encouraging me to, she hung up on me and shut her phone off. Then I came home and got you to bed. I didn't want to bring up how drunk he was and apparently, he didn't want to go over that either. He just nodded and went for another cup of coffee. Well, Renee should be returning home in the next few days also. She doesn't know yet if it will be to sell the house or move back in. Phil has been getting mixed signals from several teams. I guess all we can do is wait for Isabella to calm down and contact us. But if that don't happen in the next couple of days, we are going to Phoenix to talk to the girl. I won't give up on her this time, not without one hell of a fight. That day at school, I let the teachers know that Bella was back in Phoenix helping pack up the old house, and I wasn't sure when she would be back. Most likely early next week. That would give us time to figure out the next step, if Bella wasn't able to return. The high point of the day was the 2 new additions to the wall before the cafeteria. Ms. Ross had hung up my painting and Alice's as well. They both drew a lot of attention from everyone. Alice had painted a young man seated at a grand piano playing to an audience of 1. The figure curled up in a chair in a dark corner of the painting was unidentifiable, but I was pretty sure it was Bella. The main thing that drew attention was a yellow bottle cap resting on the piano. My painting was getting a lot of attention for the different outfits people were wearing. Everyone I could remember was represented and they all liked the choices I had made. Well, anyone who spoke to me liked it anyway. After school was over, Edythe and I were walking towards her car when we noticed a figure leaning against it. Still wearing the same clothes as the last time we saw him, Jesse was waiting for us. When the other Cullens started to gather, Edythe waved them off and spoke loud enough for them to hear, "He is just here to talk, he won't break the rules in such a way as to get the vulture hunting them." Jesse smiled as we approached. "Well, thank you for clearing that up. I assume you can read my mind. I have heard the rumors some of our kind could do that." His voice was friendly, and he spoke in a joking manner. I took the lead. "So, if you aren't here to get your ass kicked again, why are you here?" Jesse frowned. "That's another hour of torture for whoever you care about that we catch, little boy. After all, we know from experience that you can't protect everyone all the time." Edythe didn't speak, just stared at Jesse intently. As the silence grew, Jesse spoke. "It's an interesting life you have built here. Knowing you want to keep it will make our hunt just that much easier. Though I do find it thrilling to stand in front of you all right now. Just think, you could kill me right now and stop me from killing your dear Uncle Charlie. But to do so you would have to reveal yourselves and be hunted by the vulture. I also wonder if they would be interested in whatever you are, Tommy. Perhaps a new enemy to rally behind now that the werewolves are all but gone. So many ways to play with you all." My anger started to burn. "Tell you what, Jesse, if you want a fight just between us, then let's set up a proper ring. A 2-mile radius around the clearing where we first met. Just you and I, the little boy who made you look so very weak in front of your brother and mate." His face lost his smile. "Now where is the fun in that? It's too structured, no fear of what could happen to your loved ones. I like to be spontaneous, it's my brother who is the clever one. Be seeing you around." As I watched him walk away, I decided right there, I was hunting tonight. Chapter 94, Separating for the Hunt. After we lost sight of Jesse, Edythe and I drove straight to the police station so I could check up on Charlie. I was convinced that he was going to bury himself in work, in an effort to not brood on Bella. We talked, and I realized another reason for him trying to bury himself in work was so he wouldn't go home and drown himself in a bottle again, as he had done the previous night. Before leaving, I made sure he had Edythe's phone number and told him I would be at the Cullen house, so he didn't need to worry about me. I also assured him that if I heard anything from Bella, I would let him know. Seeing him settled, we made our way to the Cullen home. Walking into the front room, I saw Edward pacing back and forth with his phone in hand. "Anything else you can pick out?" Him just sitting in a dark room watching a television doesn't help much. There was a short pause as he must have been listening to a response. "Okay, just let me know if you see anything else. I can still hear all 3 of them at times, so they are in the area, for now. If I pick up any pertinent thoughts, I will pass them along. How is she holding up?" "Okay, we are going to start moving around here, so keep an eye out if you can. Just don't try and do too much, that's how we miss things. Love you sis," and thanks again." He ended his call and turned towards us. "Bella is sleeping a lot. I think this is taking a large emotional toll on her. Yet, having to run from a group of sadistic vampires intent on killing you would do that or more to anyone. Not to mention the guilt I am sure she feels for what she did to her father." I snarked. I knew I should have stayed away from her, forced her to see me for the monster and danger that I am. "Drop the self-pity act, Edward. It's not just your choice. She made hers, and now she is dealing with the consequences of it. Don't cheapen her efforts by thinking only your opinion matters here. We just need to deal with these three and then give Bella the chance to make things right. Now, what's the plan?" Rose, Emmett, and Esme are keeping an eye on Charlie right now. I can hear James right now, and he thinks that Jessie and Victoria will be testing our commitment to protecting him while gathering more information on you and Bella. Alice says she sees Jessie and Victoria in the school office during the night, but isn't sure what night. He gave a frustrated sigh and sat down. Carlisle is at work to keep up appearances. I was thinking it may be best if you two replace Emmett on guarding Charlie, and then me and Emmett go hunt James. I smiled. That actually works well with what I want to do. If I can get ahead of Jessie and Victoria, I can set up an ambush. One solid bite to the neck area and I could reduce our issues by 1/3 or even 2/3 if I can get in more than one bite. Edward shook his head. Our kind are not so easily taken down, Thomas. Tell that to the British vampire I took down when I first shifted. I have been thinking about it since Edythe told me about the visions Alice had. My fear of hurting Jasper or Emmett in our training could be holding me back. I need to go into this with the mindset of letting go of my hesitation and letting my nature to hunt free. He looked worried. If you let yourself go like that and your nature is anything like ours during a hunt, you will put all vampires near you in danger. He looked specifically in Edythe's direction. I shook my head. I will never hurt Edythe. Shifted or not, she will always be safe from me harming her. Edythe walked to the kitchen. Let me get you fed before we take Emmett's place, and they hunt James. Maybe this will all be over tonight. About an hour later, just as the day fell to twilight, I stepped outside and shifted. Moments later, Edythe and Edward joined me, and we made our way to where the group was watching Charlie. A couple of miles before we got to them, I had a thought. Hang back a bit, guys, I want to work on something. They both paused, and I started to move more deliberately. Testing the wind and reaching out with all my senses. With the wind coming from behind me, I quietly but quickly went south of where I believed them to be waiting and then traveled upwind until I caught their scent. In no time at all, I was close enough to see all three as they stood there watch over the police station. Seeing that Esme was closest to an opening in the surrounding forest, I slunk on my belly without making any sound. Every inch forward was accompanied by a pause to wait for any reaction to my presence. Holding my breath, I leaned my head forward and brushed Esme's hand with my head. Acting like a cat looking to be pet. Esme panicked and jumped away with a startled eep coming from her mouth. Rosalie quickly ran behind Emmett as he squatted down into a defensive position. Once he noticed me laying there, he relaxed and shook his head. Damn, where did you come from? I didn't hear a thing. I gave a chuffing laugh at their response, and moments later Edythe and Edward joined me. Once Esme calmed down, she gave me an angry look. You scared years off my life, mister. That was not nice. I quickly thought toward Edythe. Tell he I was just making a point about how close I can get without being noticed, please. Hopefully knowing this she won't worry when we go hunting later. Esme's eyes narrowed. What do you mean you're going hunting? Edythe relayed my response to her again. Once it's dark, we will start hunting. Edward and Emmett will go after James, who is separated from the others, and Thomas, and I will go after the other two. You and Rose will stay and look after Charlie. We will leave a message for Carlisle to join you two once he is off work. Edward broke into the conversation. Me and Emmett need to start going after James now. He is or was watching the house for any sign that Bella was still hiding there. If we wait too long, they may join back up and make this more difficult. Emmett gave Rosalie a kiss and hugged Esme. We will be just fine, so don't waste time worrying about us. Just stay safe yourselves. As much as I like Chief Swan, I would rather turn him because he found out about our nature than lose you because you get hurt trying to keep him in the dark. There was nothing I could say to that, as I agreed with him. We could figure out how to fix things later, but only if everyone was alive to do so. Once Edward and Emmett left, Edythe and I waited for the dark to settle a bit more as we were closer to town and in more danger of being seen. When it was time, we decided to first head to Charlie's house and see if we could pick up their scent from there. Edythe was constantly casting her mind out listening for them. When we got to the forest behind the house, I was able to pick up a fairly fresh trail and it led directly to the back door of the house. We followed it and once inside, I shifted back to human form. Much of my embarrassment of Edythe seeing me naked had gone away after we started to explore each other's body. Unfortunately, I lost the scent when I changed back. What do you think, Edythe? She continued to wander the house and paused in front of the bookshelf that had a majority of Bella's pictures. One stood here for a time, going through all these pictures. I think it was the woman, but their scent is mixed up. I think they were embracing each other recently. At her words, a thought occurred to me, and I looked at the stairs that led to my room. They better not have fucked on my bed. I took the stairs two at a time and pushed my door open and was happy to see that my bed was still made. However, several of my paintings had been laid out on it and there were critiques made for each one. The comments made it clear it was Jesse who wrote them. I looked over the notes he left and was not impressed by anything he had to say. Turning to Edythe, I wonder if this was some sort of scare tactic he was trying? Letting me know he could get to me here if he wanted to. Edythe chuckled. If a vampire with all our abilities can't get into an empty house and move things around, then they are a failure of a vampire. If he did this with both of us here, I would worry, but it's nothing big that he did it this way. Let's go to the school and see if tonight is the night Alice sees them there. Chapter 95, Escape into the Ocean. After leaving Charlie's house, we made our way through the forest towards the school in hopes of crossing a fresh trail left by Jesse and Victoria. However, we were out of luck. Every trail we came across was old. Let's set up near the school and see if we can spot them. Nodding her head, Edythe took the lead, and we looked for a likely spot to wait out the night. The next 4 hours were boring but nice. We talked about anything that came to mind. It helped that Edythe could practically see my answers as soon as I thought them. Though this wasn't the best way to communicate at times. I had never really thought about how much time I pondered a question and thought over my answer before vocalizing it. Luckily, Edythe was understanding and let me explain when I needed to. After so much time reading people's minds, she was aware that the first thought that popped into people's minds was rarely what they truly meant. It was about 2 a.m. when Edythe paused and turned sharply towards the school. They are here. Jesse broke the lock on the front entrance. They are looking for the admissions office. Can you tell if they will come out the same door? Most people exit the same way they enter. It's a habit that has to be consciously broken. I can't tell, they aren't thinking about leaving right now. Jesse is upset that they are here at all. He wants to get Charlie to make you chase him, but James wants information about Bella. Victoria is upset that James is being chased by Edward and Emmett. But she believes he will lose them by going north into Canadian territory they know well. Let's go down by the entrance. There should be enough shadows to hide in that are close enough to ambush them when they come out. We both moved as quietly as we could. Edythe stopped talking to me so they wouldn't pick up the sound. Once we were in place, I intently watched the entrance, and Edythe was reduced to only being able to answer questions from me in a yes or no fashion. Even that was not easy as I couldn't see her nod or shake her head because I was so focused on the doorway, so we got around that by her placing her hand on my side and tapping my shoulder once for a yes and twice for a no. After about 15 minutes, I heard 2 sets of light footsteps approaching the door and prepared myself to pounce. The first out was Victoria, followed immediately by Jessie. As soon as Jessie cleared the doorway, I leaped towards them both. I intended to take them both down at once, but Victoria reacted surprisingly quickly, and all I was able to do to her was scratch her back from right shoulder to left hip. As Victoria bolted away, and I let her go, my true target of this ambush was Jessie. Edythe hesitated to chase after Victoria in worry for me, so mentally I shouted, "Go after her," and watched as she disappeared after her. Unfortunately, that slight distraction allowed Jessie to pull himself away from my grasp. Trying to maintain control of the vampire, I bit down on the closest part of him that I could. My bite tore a piece of the vampire from his body, but Jessie was able to scramble away and make for the nearby woods in an effort to escape me. I kept right after him, not giving him a chance to escape. Jessie's movement was slower than I expected. I pounced on his back and tried for a bite at the back of his neck. As soon as my front paws touched him, he ducked down to the ground, causing me to overshoot him. Still in the air, I twisted and turned so I would land facing him. With my claws out and digging into the ground, I didn't slide far. Jessie had stopped and crouched into a defensive stance, his eyes wide and panicked. "Okay, Thomas. This is enough, just let me go and you will never see me again. I will never enter this territory again. I haven't done anything to any of your loved ones yet, so we can let bygones be. I promise I will call my brother off the Isabella girl as well. He is closing in on her as we speak, that's why he isn't with us. I could be your last chance to save her." He was panting, not because he was out of breath, of course, but because he was scared. I knew it and gave him a low growl in response. "Just let me get Victoria, and we are gone." Jessie continued talking even as his eyes were looking for an escape. I slowly started to inch forward, staring at him intently, my mouth slightly open. He tried to step back, and he stumbled a bit. That's when I noticed that he was missing half of his left foot. It must have been what I had torn from him when he was escaping my grasp. He wasn't going anywhere quickly. I started to circle him, moving towards his left side, making him constantly adjust it and use his right foot as a pivot to keep me in front of him. I tensed for a jump at him and flexed like I was making my move, and watched as he tried to jump back, falling for my feint. When he did that, I knew I had him. He was off balance and helpless, so this time I pounced for real. When we collided, I bit into and tore off his right arm. My back claws were going to town on his lower abdomen and shredding him with ease. Jessie screamed in fear and pain as my claws and teeth were unopposed by his natural defenses he prided himself on. When he fell to the ground, I did not hesitate. I just calmly approached him, staring into his fear-filled eyes until I opened my mouth wide and clamped down on his neck. His head popped off his shoulders just as easily as Henry's did during my first shift. I heard someone approaching and turned to see Rosalie and Esme. Quickly, I shifted to my human form. "Can you two take care of the body? I need to find Edythe and make sure she is okay." Without waiting for a reply, I shifted back and went in search of my love. Running as fast as I could while praying that no one was looking out their window, I followed the scent left by both vampires and was relieved when the trail led me back into the woods. Listening for any sound that would indicate a fight, I moved as quickly as I could. But between the fight I had just gone through and the distance I had run already, it wasn't long before I had to move to a slower pace as I tried to catch my breath so I could go at my top speed again. As I followed the trail, I began to smell salt in the air. The ocean was nearby. A couple of minutes later, the trail led me to a cliff that overlooked the ocean. I looked out into the water but was unable to make anything out. In my frustration, I roared at the ocean. Almost immediately heard Edythe's voice. "Thomas, I'm coming." I looked down the cliff face and saw Edythe climbing up the sheer drop with ease. The sight of her caused me to relax and reflexively shift back to human. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, just give me a second to get up there." In seconds, she was standing next to me, checking for any injuries, and I was doing the same to her. I am sorry, Thomas, she got away. I almost had her before we got to this cliff. She jumped and was gone into the ocean before I could spot her after following her in. Are you okay? What happened with Jessie? I am fine. As for Jessie, your mother and sister were burning his body as I came in search of you. Edythe hugged me tighter. That's a relief, it took everything I had to leave you to fight him alone. Let's get back so they don't worry any more than they have to. I shifted back to my tiger form, and we made our way back to town, sticking to the forest this time. When we got close to the school, we found Rosalie and Esme in the woods watching as the last of Jessie's body burned away. The smell in the air made me sneeze and shake my head. Are you two okay? Esme asked as soon as we appeared. We are fine, Mom. Victoria got away, though. I was really hoping to end this part of the fight tonight. They got all of Bella and Thomas's information from the school records. I heard Victoria speaking on the phone, so I assume James now has the information as well. Have you heard from Edward? Yes, he and Emmett are on their way back. They lost James in the Vancouver airport. Edward is thinking about going to Bella and hiding her while Alice looks for the safest way to take him down. With you two being here, I assume Carlisle is watching over Charlie. Esme nodded her head. Well, we should probably head home so Thomas can get some sleep and be ready for school tomorrow. I need to call Alice and talk with her. I know I said it would be 2 chapters, but I just couldn't concentrate on my writing with my wife excited about the vacation trip. I am taking pen and paper so I can outline the next book and maybe do a better job of it. See you all in a couple of weeks, stay safe so you can read more of my story. Chapter 96, James has Renee. Wednesday morning at school, all anyone wanted to talk about was the break-in last night. Teachers were going through all the rooms looking for any missing items or vandalism. Charlie was there with the secretary and the principal, trying to figure out if it was an early senior prank or if it was something more malicious. I went about the day, racking my brain about what to do to make Bella safe. Crazy plans about trying to trap James came and went. It wasn't until biology that I wondered why I wasn't upset over killing Jessie. Sure, he was a threat to me and my family, but he was also a sentient being. Was it weird that I didn't feel anything over killing him? Killing Henry, I could excuse because of the first shift thing, but shouldn't I be at least a little torn up that I hunted and killed someone? I shoved the question aside as unimportant for now. Hopefully, it was just not in my nature to care for those who presented themselves as prey to me. Edythe had told me that Edward was going to fly to Phoenix today with Carlisle and Emmett to move Bella to somewhere safer and more controlled until we dealt with James permanently. That was why only her and Rose came to school today. I wanted to go as well, but knowing that Victoria was still out there somewhere stopped me from leaving Charlie's side. Hopefully, she had gone to join James, and they would be together when we finally caught up to them. I wondered if this would be the norm now when we came across carnivore vampires. Would it be kill or be killed every time? That led my mind to wonder why vampires hadn't become a larger part of the population than they had. If all it took was one bite to turn someone, then why not increase the population of vampires, safety in numbers? When I asked Edythe about it during lunch, she just shrugged it away as greed. When you feel you are the apex of humanity, why share it? Her family would only turn someone for personal reasons and if their life was in danger. She herself questioned Carlisle about why they didn't turn people like Albert Einstein or Steve Hawkins. Giving them immortality with their gifts would help the world advance. She also brought up a topic that surprised me more than I would have admitted. Not everyone was able to handle the extended life of a vampire. A surprising number of vampires went to the Volturi each year to request their own deaths. Tired of the never-ending day and unwilling to go on, they begged for a quick death. The Volturi would sometimes seek to change their minds, but usually they just had Alec numb them and their guard would end them. The rest of the day passed with nothing being accomplished. I held hands with Edythe as we walked to her car when my phone rang. I was quick to answer it and a little surprised when an unfamiliar voice asked if I was Thomas Raizel. When I replied that I was, she informed me that my truck was ready for pickup. It took me a moment to remember what she was talking about. After hanging up, I completely forgot. I bought a truck before this whole thing started. Edythe smiled, let's go get it. I can't wait to ride with you. In less than an hour, I was pulling out of the dealership and following Edythe so she could drop her car off and we could go for a drive. Knowing that Charlie was safe during the day with so many people around, let us relax our watch over him. As we pulled onto the long driveway to her house, Edythe suddenly picked up speed. I was confused as to why she felt the need to arrive just seconds faster, but I was quick to follow her regardless. When Edythe got to the house, she came to a skidding stop and was at my door before I could get my transmission in park. Something is wrong, Thomas. I can hear panic in Esme's thoughts. Then she was gone in a blink, and the front door was left open. I followed as quickly as I could. By the time I got to the front room, I saw Rosalie standing still as a statue and Esme and Edythe talking so quickly that I couldn't follow what they were saying. Esme turned to me and started to explain as Edythe watched me. Thomas, I need you to listen to me and try to stay focused on my voice. Keep your mind as clear as you can. Please. I took a breath and nodded my head, not trusting myself to talk. Esme began, while Alice, Jasper, and Bella were waiting for the boys and Carlisle to arrive at the Phoenix airport. Bella slipped away somehow. She had given Alice a note she said was for her mother, but when she disappeared, Alice read it and found out that James had Renee. When I heard that James had Renee, all thinking stopped. My body started to tremble, and I felt the flames of my anger rising. Then I felt cool arms wrap around me, and Edythe was talking to me. Hold it together, Thomas. We need some answers from you, and you can't give them if you lose yourself to this. Calm down and help us find Bella. Alice saw James in a room of mirrors, and Bella said it looked like her old ballet studio. Do you know the name of it or where it is so they can find it fast? They know it's close to her house, but not exactly where. I tried to take a breath, but my airway was tense and barely allowed any air in. It took a minute, but my mind was racing for answers as I tried to relax enough to speak. Soft Steps Ballet Studio, it's less than 2 blocks from the house. Tell them to go down Tumble Road, no stop signs or school zones. Edythe reached for her phone as it rang and spoke too quickly for me to understand again. She held my eyes the whole time she spoke, and when she closed her phone, she spoke to me in a calm voice. They just had to ditch the car they stole from the airport as a cop was starting to chase them. Edward is taking a chance and running there as fast as he can while the others are stealing another car from a parking lot. My mind was blank of anything but the thought to not shift. I stiffly walked to the couch and sat down, placing my head in my hands. Edythe sat next to me. They will find them, Thomas. They have to. I hated that I was so far away when Bella needed me the most, no matter how irrational it was. I knew the plan. Hell, I helped make it. But now with Bella in trouble and Aunt Renee dragged into it, I was second-guessing everything. You can't blame yourself for this, Thomas. If you weren't here but with Bella, there is a chance that Charlie would be in danger. You can't be everywhere. I lifted my head and looked at Edythe. I thought you couldn't read my mind unless I was shifted. It doesn't take a mind reader to know what you're thinking. You tend to blame yourself for anything that goes wrong with your loved ones. The next 20 minutes crawled by with no word of what was going on. Images of Renee and Bella's broken bodies filled my head until finally, a phone rang. It was Esme's phone, and seconds after answering, she turned to look at me. Carlisle says Bella is hurt but will survive. They are rushing her to a hospital now. James never had Renee, he tricked Bella with a videotape. James was also killed in the fight. Let me learn more, and I will tell you everything. Relief flooded my mind and body. With no warning, my clothes exploded, and I was sprawled out on the chair in all my supersized tiger form, until suddenly it collapsed under my weight. My surprised look must have been funny because Edythe started to laugh near hysterically, and even Rosalie smiled enough to show her teeth. Once Esme got all the information, she ushered the three of us, once I was dressed again, into her Escalade and we discussed what we would be telling Charlie. Thankfully, there was no question of retrieving him before we flew to Phoenix. When we pulled into the parking lot of the police station, Edythe, Esme, and I walked into the station. Rose was on the phone chartering a flight for us. For obvious reasons, the group of us couldn't fly commercial. Esme took charge and walked into Charlie's office. "Charlie, Bella has been hurt, and you need to come with us to Phoenix." Charlie jumped up, banging his knee into the open drawer of his desk, but didn't react to that. "What happened?" "She will be okay, right?" Edward talked Carlisle into going to Phoenix to talk to Bella, and when they got there, they got a room not too far from Bella's house. She agreed to meet Edward under Carlisle's supervision and went to the hotel, but on her way up to the room, she fell down some stairs and almost went through a window. Charlie gasped and fell back down into his chair, his face turned white. Esme continued, "Luckily, Edward was nervously pacing the halls, waiting for her, and heard the noise. He found her and yelled for Carlisle, who came and immediately started to treat her wounds before rushing her to the hospital. She lost a good bit of blood and broke some bones, but she will heal from everything with time." Charlie stood up again, "I need to get a flight booked and packed. I need to be there for her." Esme interrupted him, "Nothing to worry about, we have a flight ready that will have us in phones just after sundown. We can get you a change of clothes there after you see Bella. You just need a place to safely leave your gun, no reason to hassle with getting it through the airport." Charlie began taking his gun belt off to put in the safe in his office when he looked at me. "Would you tell Ken what's going on and that he and Jeff will have to cover for my shift until I get back?" I nodded my head and quickly did as he asked. 5 minutes later, we were in the Escalade headed to the airport. I would like to thank everyone for their patience and in turn pose a question. Do you think Thomas should go on his training arch without Edythe? Let me know your thoughts. Chapter 97, A Pained Howl. It had been a little over 2 weeks since we had returned from Phoenix, and the house was busier than ever. Bella moved slowly through the house with her leg in a cast and still healing ribs, so Alice took it upon herself to come every day and help out where she could. That relieved me and Charlie from having to help Bella with her bathroom and bathing issues brought about because of her injuries. Thank God. I don't think anyone in the house would survive that embarrassment. Edythe was here constantly to help with meals and spend time with me when we weren't in school. My new truck had been the talk of the town for about a week, then it was just an accepted fixture in town life. Charlie practically worshipped the ground Carlisle walked on, and all his displeasure fell on poor Edward. This had become the new normal, I thought as I was pulling my truck into the school parking lot with Edythe at my side. Any plans today, sunshine? Edythe smiled at me as she darted her head forward and gave me a quick kiss. Nothing too special. Esme asked me to stop by your new house and help with some advice on a few things, and then I'll be over to fix you, Bella, and Charlie dinner. Why do you ask? I gave her a mock frown. You know, she should be letting me decide on these things. It is my house after all. Edythe laughed. It's one of Mom's quirks, she doesn't like people seeing unfinished projects she is working on for them. She wants them to get the whole thing the first time they see her work. And you didn't answer my question. Do you want to make plans for us today? I want to run the forest after school for a while, maybe slip over to the Quileute side and sniff around some more for Victoria's scent. Alice said the last vision she had of Victoria was her heading to Seattle like someone was chasing her. The bit I saw in her head tells me she wouldn't place herself in danger by sticking around here. Edythe tried to alleviate my worry. I sighed. After what your dad told me about vampires' attachment to their mates, I am still worried. We took both of her mates, which I didn't know was possible to begin with, I might add. It's rare, but not unheard of. Some, like Marcus of the Vulturi, would rather die than take another mate. That is one extreme, and I have heard of another vampire in Brazil with as many as 5 mates following him around to go to the other extreme. The little I got from Victoria was that she saw James and Jessie as much as bodyguards as she considered them mates. I shook my head. I don't know, I just feel like this isn't over yet, is all. Ignoring her could come back to bite us down the road. Edythe laughed. You worry too much, Thomas. She opened the passenger door and hopped out. I got out of my side and walked to her and took her hand, then walked her to class. There was plenty of time to make it to my own class. When I did make it to class, Alice was there waiting for me. We had drawn the idea for our next art project, and it had been painting your favorite tree. I planned to do a blooming sakura tree, and Alice refused to tell me what she was doing. After class was over, Mrs. Ross called out to me and Alice. Before you two leave, I wanted to give you some news. Alice, your painting has gotten many students interested in painting because of your style. You, Thomas, have had the same effect, but more than that, it has pushed the student council to change their plans for prom this year. Originally, they planned to go with the theme of the movie franchise of James Bond, but now they plan to go with a generational approach. They will recommend that students look for outfits from any time frame that interests them. They feel it will give the students more originality and make the picture booth a must for everyone this year. Alice jumped up and down and clapped her hands in excitement at this, and I smiled at her enthusiasm. I am glad so many enjoyed it and that it gave people artistic ideas of their own. That's what art should be about. Thanks for letting us know, Mrs. Ross. Alice and I walked to her class, just chattering about ideas for what time frame we thought had the best clothing that would work for prom. I knew she would be working with Edward to get Bella and his outfit together, and I wouldn't be surprised to find out I have no choice in what I end up wearing. Rather than being bothered by this, I was thankful. These dances were for the girls anyway. I, as a guy, got all my enjoyment from these things by watching my date shine in happiness. Just before I got to my own classroom, I waved to Edward, who was walking out the door after escorting Bella to class and carrying her book bag. She was still using crutches at this point, so it was a pain to try and do everything herself. Not that she would admit it or even accept the help without frowning about it. The rest of the day went smoothly, and after the last bell, I drove Edythe as close as I was allowed to get to my new home, which was being renovated, where I dropped her off. Driving home, I thought about where to start my run today. Hopefully, Sam would be shifted so I could ask for his okay to be on the reservation. I was not banned or anything, but it was still good to ask, I figured. The house was empty when I got there, so I was quick to change into shorts and head into the woods. Once I got to my rock, I shifted and made my way to the rock cliff where I had first met Leah. Moments later, I felt the pressure at the edge of my awareness that signaled to me Sam had just made the change. Thomas, is that you? You know, Sam. One day, someone is going to ask, who is Thomas, in a strange voice, and you are going to freak out. You are probably right. What are you doing shifted? Working out with your friends again? Nah. Today, I am looking for signs of that carnivore vampire Victoria. If you don't mind, I will range into your territory a bit also. What about you? It's too early for your usual rounds. I am headed to Emily's place. Go ahead and cross the border, Thomas. You are still welcome. Thanks, Sam. I really doubt she is in the area, but I just can't shake the feeling she will be back. I was going to ask how things were going with Emily, but I didn't, because I knew it wasn't going well at all. Sam was unshakable in his faith that he would win her over, but Emily wasn't showing any signs of forgiving him for hurting Leah, at least outwardly. Trust your instincts, Thomas. They are primal. Well, I am just outside Emily's place. Wish me luck, it's the 333rd time telling her how I feel, so maybe luck will be on my side. She just needs to accept her feelings for me, and then we can appeal to Leah for forgiveness together. I sighed to myself and was again hopeful that my nature was different enough that I would not imprint. I didn't want to lose my feelings for Edythe because of some biological urge. I wish you luck and hope it all works out for you, Sam. I will let you know if I find anything in my search. I felt Sam disconnect from my mind as he shifted back to human. I made my way deep into Quileute land, checking for any vampire scent at all, but found nothing. About 30 minutes into my search, I heard a pained yelp and a frightened howl split the air. I felt the pressure on my mind again and reached for Sam, wondering what had happened. When the connection was established, my mind was overwhelmed with his pained cries. Oh heavens, I have killed her. I want to die. I didn't mean it, please stop bleeding. I can't change back to help, she is dying, and I did it. Help me God. I started running as fast as I could toward where the howl had come from. Sam, I am coming. Lead me in with another howl. Thomas. I heard another howl of pain and slightly changed directions. Help us, Emily is hurt, and it's my fault. Hurry, there is so much blood and I can't get near her. Oh God, there is blood covering my claws. Please kill me if she can't be saved, I deserve it. Panicked whines reached my ears as I arrived at a small house butted up to the woods. When I arrived, I saw a young woman with black hair lying on her back and blood pooling all around her. I shifted to human form and ran to where she was. Sam was nearby in wolf form and in a full panic. One moment trying to approach her and the next backing away, whining. At first glance, I saw 3 long scratches along the right side of her face starting beside her eye and straight down her cheek. The scratches then picked up along her right arm, nearly down to her wrist. Knowing I had to do something about the blood loss, all I could think was to make a tourniquet for her arm, as all I would be able to do for her face would be cloth and pressure. Looking around for something to use, my mind went to the band around Sam's leg. I ran toward him and shouted. Sam, stop moving. I need the band around your back leg. His whole body shivered as he tried to force himself still so I could help his mate. In no time at all, I removed the band and grabbed a small stick. I took Emily's hand and stretched the band around it and up the cuts until I reached above the torn flesh, then I put the stick in the band and started to twist it until I saw the blood flow from the wounds slow significantly. I then tucked the stick under the band so it wouldn't come undone unintentionally. With that done, I stood up and ran towards her house and went in with no hesitation. I ran straight to the phone on the wall and dialed Edythe's number. As the phone rang, my eyes were searching the room for car keys and other things I would need, as a plan was forming in my head. Hello. Edythe, I need you to get your father in an ambulance. I have a young woman who has severe blood loss from an animal attack, and I do not know her blood type. Get to the Quileute border along La Push Road as quickly as you can. I will bring her in a car. It will be a blue late model Honda Civic. Look for the naked white guy driving. I didn't wait for a reply as my mind was already trying to figure out the best way to get her in the car with the least amount of pain for her. I grabbed a clean towel from a pile near the sink and ran to the spot where I had seen the car keys and ran out the door with them in hand. Straight into a second wolf, who tensed and growled at me in surprise. Knowing who it was, Jared, are you calm enough to shift back? I need help getting her into the car. After a brief pause, he shifted back in an agonizingly long amount of time. Carry her to the passenger side, and once I am in, put her in with her head towards me so I can apply pressure to her face as we get to the hospital. We should get her to Sue Clearwater, she is a nurse. No time or guarantee she is home. Besides, these cuts go to the bone, the longer we take, the worse off she will be in the long term. I will make sure she gets the best care possible. Move now. Sam growled at Jared, and that ended all debate for the wolf warrior. He quickly picked her up and ran to the car to do as I had told him. Before he got her in, I had moved the seat back and started the car. When Emily was in the car, I laid her face up in my lap and put the towel on her facial cuts with as much pressure as I dared. I hit the gas almost before Jared got the door closed, racing towards the highway and praying Edythe and Carlisle would be waiting for me. Chapter 98, Freaked Out, Guilty Wolf. It had been nearly 6 hours since we had brought Emily into the emergency room. Edythe had managed to bring me clothes so I could be in the hospital. I held her phone in my hand and called Emily's house every 30 minutes to tell Jared of any changes, and he relayed it all to Sam. Sam was still unable to calm down enough to make the change, and his helplessness just made him feel worse, thus making it even harder to calm down. It was a vicious circle. Edythe was sitting next to me as Carlisle finally walked into the waiting room. That young girl is very lucky. The scratches start millimeters from her right eye. It was hard for me to get enough skin to stitch in that area. She will have some scarring, but it will not be a defining feature of her face. I managed to get the stitches small enough that with some special skin cream, the scars will fade even more. Her arm, however, will have scars for life, though even those will not stand out too much. He paused for the information to sink in. I put this down as a bear attack, so I will have to inform the authorities. I nodded my head and started to give my thanks, but Carlisle was still speaking. Now, because of who she is, according to Edythe, I have put in for some emergency vacation time to be away from the hospital. That should make the Quileute elders allow her to stay here for the best care until she can be released in a couple of days. His thoughtfulness and understanding moved my respect for him to a whole new level. Can I see her? He shook his head. She is still unconscious and will hopefully remain that way until the morning. Thanks, Carlisle. I will pass this along to Sam and the tribe. And I am sorry that their poor judge of character is pushing you away from your chosen life. He smiled. It is just a few days, and I will sneak in if there is an emergency. Besides, now I can spend some quality time with Esme and help work on your house. You are too good for this world, Doc. Don't allow yourself to be near danger. God calls angels like you home far too often. He laughed at that. For some reason, I doubt I am on his list, if he does exist. If he exists, and is as all-knowing as they say, then you are definitely on his list, and if he doesn't exist, he should. Just to give people like you a place to rest in the afterlife. That got me a surprised look from Carlisle and a kiss from Edythe. Anyway, I have a freaked out, guilty wolf to give an update to. I pulled Edythe into a hug. Thank you for all your help, love, and I will see you tonight. I walked out of the hospital and decided to leave Emily's car there. I made my way to the nearby woods and found one of my supply backpacks where I made the change. As soon as I did, I felt Sam reaching out for my mind. Thomas, how is she? She will be okay, Sam. The doctor was able to limit her scarring, and other than blood loss, she wasn't in any real danger once we started treatment. They won't let anyone see her until tomorrow, but she will make a full recovery. Instead of the relief I had expected, Sam seemed to spiral down a well of self-blame and torture. I did this to her, I hope she lets me kill myself. The very thing that brought her into my life and made her so special to me nearly took her from me. Sam sighed again. The elders are demanding to see you as well. We are at Emily's cleaning up wolf sign and planting bear tracks. What do they want with me? They are unhappy you took Emily to the hospital where a cold one plays. My temper flared at that, and I decided to go see them if only to give them a piece of my mind. I'll be there in a bit, but don't plan on it ending in smiles, Sam. That cold one you all despise so much just saved Emily from being tortured every time she sees her reflection, and he did it knowing how you all feel. He is not natural, Thomas. Neither are we, Sam. Not by majority standards. Anyway, what happened? What caused you to hurt the woman you love? There was a long pause. She told me to stay away from her and go back to Leah. That she didn't want the cost of our happiness to be Leah's suffering. Another pause. As I was moving through the woods, I was filled with joy that she said it was our happiness, that she was finally allowing herself to feel that for us. But I told her I could stay away from her if that was her true wish, but I would not go back to Leah. That would be a lie, and it would hurt Leah more than anything else I could do. I would rather she hate me for being myself than love me for lying to her. I didn't comment, but I agreed with him there. Love built on a lie is just pain and hatred waiting to happen. When I said that, Emily charged at me angrily and got in my face, yelling at me. My emotions were in such a flux that I was worried for her, so I placed a hand out to force a distance between us, and then what she was yelling registered in my mind. She told me I was just like Joshua, running from my responsibilities for something easier. Being compared to him, to my father, who abandoned me and my mother, forcing us into a life of scraping by on the charities of others, maddened me and caused an involuntary shift. My hand was too close to her, and when I fell forward as a wolf, my claws dug into her. I swear I didn't mean it, Thomas. I swear on everything I hold dear. I could hear the tears in his mental voice, and all I could feel was sorrow. There was no fault on either side. A thought hit me, and I hesitated to ask about it, but I decided that it was worth a shot bringing it up if it could help. Have you thought about maybe a polygamous relationship? Didn't you tell me you had an ancestor who had 3 wives? That was because he lived long enough for his first 2 wives to pass naturally. And Emily did think of that, even bringing it up to me. She confided in me that Leah thought for a time she was more interested in women than men. The 2 cousins explored that a little when puberty first hit them. But Emily didn't feel the same way, and she thought Leah had changed as well when she started a relationship with me. I thought long and hard on that and decided against it, because what I felt for Emily was stronger than what I felt for Leah, not equal. So, no matter what I tried, I knew I would be giving more to Emily, and that wouldn't be fair to Leah. Did you ever ask Leah for her thoughts on the subject or just decide that only your opinion on it mattered? Of course, my opinion matters more, I am the man. The responsibility falls on me alone, and as the pack leader, I must set the example. I was almost to Emily's house when he said that, and I let out an irritated sigh. You sound as stupid as Edward with that one sentence, Sam. Relationships are never about just one person's feelings. A true relationship needs to take in the feelings of everyone involved. Celebrate where you feel the same and compromise on your differences. That is not our way, Thomas. When we form a relationship, it is up to the man to lead, and the woman walks beside or follows him. We will just have to disagree on that one, my friend. I am here. I said the last bit as I broke through the forest near Emily's house. Chapter 99, Elders. I was amused at the panic I caused for some in the group. Harry Clearwater, who I knew from fishing with Charlie, was holding up another elder who had nearly fallen in surprise or fright. That elder deserved his name, he looked to easily be in his 90s. Billy obviously didn't jump back, but his fists went to his wheelchair rather fast. When he finally relaxed, Billy was the first to speak. Damn, Sam's words did you no justice, Thomas. That, or you have grown more since he told us of your shape. I gave a tiger's chuff as I laughed before shifting to human. I had realized early on that I was going to have to accept nudity as a shifter. It just wasn't possible to go diving for clothes every time I made a shift to human. If anyone had an issue with that, then it was their issue, not mine. Besides, there was no shame in my body shape. I will assume you know what happened up to my last phone call. The verdict is that Emily Young will make a full recovery, with minimal scarring to her face. Her arm is not so lucky, but she will have full use of it in time. Carlyle knows how you see his kind, so as soon as he had done what he could, he took a leave of absence from the hospital on a made-up emergency. I was interrupted by the eldest of the group. You allowed a cold one to touch a possible chieftainess? That alone could cause her to be disqualified from any role in the tribe. My temper flared at hearing this from an elder and from the thoughtful looks the other elders gave at his words. Without Carlyle's help, that girl would have been doomed to a life of pain and ostracization from anyone who saw her. Every time she would have passed her reflection, she would see thick, ropey scars running down her face. Every time Sam looked at her, he would have to know it was his fault she was disfigured and felt the pain of her treatment from others. To men, scars are honor, to women, they are a sentence of lifelong torture. Better that than contamination from a vile leech. How do we know he didn't secretly feed on her to satisfy his thirst? Why else would a bloodsucker work in a hospital? Damn, you sound pathetic and weak. If you are the example of an elder's thought, then you should have died before you hit 60. I turned to walk away, but Billy shouted for me. Wait, Thomas. Quill is but one elder, and the council is 3. Is the girl truly okay and unchanged? I nodded my head. Yes, I plan to visit her in the morning. You can come with me and check for yourself. Carlyle put the cause of injury down as a bear attack on the report, so Charlie and probably a park ranger will want to get with your tribal police to track it to see if it was a one-time thing or if there is a bear looking at humans as prey. Billy nodded. We are making it look like she came outside and surprised a bear who attacked and ran. Thank you, Thomas, for everything, and I will meet with you at the hospital at the beginning of visiting hours. I nodded and shifted to leave, but I felt Sam push at my mind, so I let him in. Tell her I am sorry and will pay for it with my life if it's what she wants. Just promise to help look after my tribe until Jacob changes to become the alpha. If she is worth the devotion you give her, I won't be saddled with that responsibility. With that, I ran into the woods towards home. It was getting late, and I didn't want Bella asking too many questions. She was not supposed to know about the wolves. After stopping at my rock and getting dressed, I headed for home. It was just about 10 o'clock, and I was starving. Charlie was working overnight, so I wasn't surprised to see Edythe waiting for me in the kitchen when I walked through the door. She was finishing up her preparations for dinner. I assumed she started to finalize the preparations once she heard me moving through the woods. As I grabbed a glass and went to the fridge for the milk, she asked, "So, how did it go with the elders?" I sighed. I am beginning to think they each have a specific role as an elder. Billy Black is the ray of sunshine, the reasonable one. Open to new things and always ready to compromise. While their eldest, Quill Atira. He seems to be the stuck in the past, only the rules matter, type. Then there is Harry Clearwater, calm, focused, ever watchful, and quiet in a crowd. Edythe smiled. That's their dynamics, but that doesn't answer my question. So impatient. I think they will hold off on any decision until Billy sees Emily tomorrow. If it were up to Quill alone, I believe he would punish her as far as he thought he could get away with. I really don't get his problem. He wasn't even alive the last time your coven was in the area, but he has so much hate for vampires. Edythe shook her head. You forget that there are other vampires besides us. I don't know for sure, but it is possible that once we left last time, others came looking for us. While we aren't here, there is nothing stopping others from feeding as they please. It wouldn't surprise me that his family was affected in some way by a non-vegetarian vampire. I hadn't thought about that, to be honest. Maybe I should look more into their history. You have a point. I will have to ask when I have time. I began to eat the large helping of spaghetti that Edythe had placed in front of me. The accompanying garlic bread was a perfect mix of crunchy and gooey combined. After dinner, we went to my room, and I assumed Bella and Edward were in her room, though I intentionally didn't try to listen or snoop in any way. Holding Edythe in my arms, I drifted off to sleep. That night, I was disturbed by a dream about the mall shooting again, but it didn't cause the normal outburst. When I started to wake up, I felt Edythe comfort me and immediately fell back into my slumber. To be awakened by my alarm at my normal time. My normal morning routine was as comfortable and heartwarming as it was boring to think about. Both Edythe and I were plentiful in showing our affection for each other, as if afraid that we would start to take these small moments for granted, only to lose them in doing so. My morning exercise was mostly a habit now. Well, truly, it was an excuse to play around in my tiger form and keep testing its limits. I could just feel that I wasn't using it to its fullest potential yet. I was just unsure of how to experiment with the ability and wondered again about my bloodline. Before I knew it, I was standing at the entrance of the hospital waiting for Billy to arrive. About 10 minutes before 9, I saw Jacob pull into the parking lot. I walked over to where he was parking, and before Jacob could jump out of the driver's seat, I had already grabbed Billy's wheelchair from the bed of the truck and set it beside the passenger door. With no hesitation, I opened the door and helped Billy into his chair. Casually, I started to push Billy along and struck up a conversation with Jacob as we went. "How's life treating you, Jacob?" "Good so far today, Thomas. How have you been? Haven't seen you or Bella at the beach lately." I smiled. "Yeah, Bella has been preoccupied with her new boyfriend, and Edythe has been keeping me busy as well. Plus, with summer approaching, the teachers are trying to fit in as many homework assignments as possible. Rumor is that you will be moving into your own place this summer." Jacob smiled. "That's the plan. It's my mom's old house. It is going through a renovation now." Before we could talk much more, we entered the waiting lobby of the hospital, and it was a madhouse. You would think that some emergency was either ongoing or arriving soon. I just pushed Billy to the help desk and got the nurse's attention. "We are here to visit Emily Young. She was brought in late yesterday because of a bear attack. Are you family?" Before I could say anything, Billy answered. "I am the chief of the tribe, that should suffice." Being this close to a reservation, the hospital staff knew that the rules were different for tribal members and allowed us entry. "Room 213, the elevator is just around the corner," the nurse replied after looking Emily up on her computer. Before we lost her attention, I asked, "Is there an emergency coming in soon? All the activity seems panicked." The nurse laughed. "No, one of our doctors had to leave for an emergency, and this is the result. Dr. Cullen is usually such a calming influence here that when he is gone, everyone panics like the sky is falling. It will clear up around lunch as usual." I laughed and started to push Billy toward the elevator. "Thanks, and have a great day." Chapter 100, Emily Young. Once we got to the proper floor, Billy addressed Jacob. "Why don't you wait out here, son? No reason to crowd the poor woman." Despite his smile when asking about me moving into my new place, I could tell Jacob was a bit out of it. He had been acting a little off since hearing about Bella having a boyfriend, so it wasn't hard to understand his sudden silence. "Sure, Dad. I'll just sit over here," he replied distractedly. We found the room number, and the door was open. As soon as his front wheels entered the room, Billy called out, "Emily. It's Billy Black, mind if we come in?" A soft voice responded, "Chief Black. Please, come in." We entered the room and opened the privacy curtain that had been drawn. This was my first look at Emily Young without her being soaked in blood. Her hair was the natural black of her people, and her tan skin had a paleness to it that was most likely due to her loss of blood that she hadn't fully recovered from yet. She had a beautiful, full, round face and dark eyes, marred by a bandage on the right side. Her eyes were looking behind us, as if looking for someone. "Is Sam with you? Is he okay?" Billy reached up to grasp her hand. "He isn't with us." He paused as if trying to think of how to say what he wanted to. "He is devastated by what happened to you and has been in the woods since. He can't bring himself to face anyone right now." He paused and looked at her as if to ask if she understood his meaning. Her face showed some sadness, some relief, and then puzzlement. "What happened to me?" Billy sighed, "As far as anyone can tell. You were leaving your house and walking to your car when you must have surprised a bear, and it took a swipe at you before running off. Thomas Raizel here, heard the screaming while hiking nearby, and came running. He found you on the ground, bleeding, and did what he could to stop the blood loss. He called for an ambulance, but it would take a while to get to you, so he placed you in your car and drove you until he met the ambulance. Then you were brought here to be cared for. She stared at us for a moment, and Billy let her sit quietly as the information he gave her sank in. This was, after all, the official version of what happened. After a long pause, she looked at me for the first time, taking in my appearance as I had taken hers in. You look like the guy Leah told me about meeting. You came across her in the woods a few months back. I chuckled. That was when she called me a pale face and told me to keep to my side of the river. Emily gave a half smile. She felt really bad about that. So don't hold it against her. I have spoken to her since then, and she did apologize. How are you feeling? She freed her hand from Billy's and raised it to her face. The whole right side of my face feels tight, like it's being stretched. Then she ran her hand down her right arm. My arm feels like an extra heart beating just barely off rhythm with the one in my chest. It's weird. Billy spoke calmly. We are just happy you are going to be okay. She brought her hand back to her face, and her expression went vague for a moment. I imagine my face will look as ugly as my heart and soul now. How fitting. Billy reached for Emily, but she kept her hand on her face, so he settled for patting her leg. Don't talk like that, Ms. Young. Things will work out. A tear fell from her right eye, soaking into the bandage there. Not for everyone. She said softly. Billy sighed sadly. We should leave you to heal in peace. Her eyes went a little panicky, as if afraid to be left alone, and she hurriedly asked, Could you stay for a bit, Mr. Raizel? I would like to know the person I owe my life to. Billy just nodded his head. I will return to the tribe and let them know you are okay. I let go of the handles of his wheelchair and stepped back as he turned to maneuver his way out of the room. He closed the door behind him as he left. I walked to a chair that was at the end of the bed and sat down facing Emily. After a couple of minutes of staring out the window, Emily spoke. Sam says you are like him, but different. Yes. Though I think I'm cooler. This got a bit of a smile from her. Not a true one, just her trying to be polite to my comment. What really happened? I remember saying some terrible things to Sam, and him trying to keep me at a distance. Then a flash of black and. That's all I remember. From what I understand, you triggered his transformation with your words, and in that split second of change, he couldn't control his actions. The nails of his front paw gouged into you, and when he realized it, he went into a panic. I paused there to let it sink in. I was close by, hunting, and heard him, felt his anguish and self-hatred, all blaring out into the world. So, I came running and found you bleeding out. Shifting back requires a calm that he obviously didn't possess at the time, so there is no telling how long it would have been before anyone else could have helped you. I called my girlfriend from your home phone after stopping the bleeding from your arm and told her to get an ambulance, and her father and meet us at the reservation border. Then drove your car to meet them with you. The only other option would have been a nurse Jared spoke of in an hour-long drive to some hospital up north because of the tribe's fears about a doctor in this hospital. I am no expert, but that would have made your recovery much worse, I believe. I paused again. So on the plus side, your car is waiting here for you to drive it home when you get out. She gave me a true half-hearted smile this time and then looked into my eyes and asked. Have you also imprinted on someone? I took a deep breath. No, and hopefully that isn't part of my nature. I am in a relationship with Edythe Cullen. Though I feel the simple word relationship isn't adequate for how I feel anymore. Her eyes narrowed as if trying to pierce my head. How can you be in a relationship if you know it's possible to imprint? Don't you know what that can do to her? Or don't you care? Like I said, it's possible that I won't imprint. Should I remain single for life just in case? Ignore how happy we are together. No, that's not what I mean. She sighed and went quiet for a while, lost in thought. My last boyfriend was a real ass. He wanted me as a trophy girl to show off at the bars. He used to tell me he loved how others looked at him with jealousy when I was with him. At first, I was flattered that he liked my looks and wanted to show me off. Looking back, I was just happy he wanted me. But eventually I saw him for the loser Leah knew he was. It took a lot of convincing on her part to wake me up, but she is a stubborn girl. A life of drinking and being shown off at bars, between sitting at home waiting for the mailman to bring us a government check was all that was in store for me with him. Another tear fell from her eye, this time on the left side, so she whipped it away. That was the reason I moved here to La Push. I wanted to be with Leah, my cousin, who was a sister to me. We were so happy when I first moved here, I even tricked her into thinking it was just another visit. Leah has been dating Sam for 3 years now, well had been, I guess. She paused again, steeling herself to continue talking. I wanted what she had, Sam's calm love, his acceptance of her wanting to do something with her life. His drive to be more than he was, for her. She paused and stared right into my eyes. But I didn't want hers. Not her happiness. Not her lover. Not her. Sam. How could I ever want to take any of that from her? I felt the despair in her words and knew that this was no cruel girl trying to ruin someone else's happiness to fill a void in herself. Just a young woman caught between impossible choices and guilt. You know, he asked me to get your permission for him to kill himself for what he did to you. The tears began to flow faster down her face, so I continued talking. There is a saying that comes to mind. It is possible to do everything right and still lose. If that is true, then it is possible to do nothing wrong and still hurt someone. You may not be in the wrong. Leah did nothing wrong, and Sam did nothing wrong. But someone is still going to get hurt, if not everyone. After a few moments of silence, of quiet tears, Emily spoke again. In some way, I feel like I deserved this. I should be made to suffer for the rest of my life. It's not fair what I have done to Leah, what Sam and I have done. He confessed to me once that he had broken down multiple times in tears for the pain he caused Leah. He knows he loved her, and he knows that he betrayed her. Worst of all, he can't tell her why because of the tribe's rules. I think that was when I started to fall in love with him. If he had acted like he did no wrong, or just never mentioned Leah again, I could hate him. Be disgusted by him. But he truly regrets the pain she is going through. I was reminded of a conversation that I had with my mom one day when she and Johnny had fought. She told me that sometimes women need to talk to someone. Not looking for help, advice, answers, or even approval of their feelings. Sometimes women just need to hear it out loud. I decided this was one of those times, so I just gave her all my attention and didn't say a word. How much should I pay for taking Sam away from Leah? Will these scars be enough, or is this just enough for me to finally admit that I love him? Her eyes cleared of their doubt, and she truly focused on me. Mr. Raizel, I want you to tell Sam that he does not have my permission to harm himself. He will live with the pain he has caused. We both will. We will not take the easy way out, and one day we will face Leah together. We will not let Leah's pain be for nothing. We will show everyone that we were meant for each other. Then maybe one day we will be able to forgive ourselves. Would you tell him that for me, please, Mr. Raizel? Call me Thomas, and I will be sure to tell him exactly what you said. You should probably get some sleep, give yourself time to heal. Oh, and don't count on the scaring to act like some sign of penance. Your doctor managed to minimize the damage, and he is confident that the facial scars will be negligible. Her face was hard to read when I told her that, but she replied quietly. Thanks, Thomas. Could you also tell Sam that I want to see him today, no excuses? I stood up and gave her a smile as I walked to the privacy curtain and closed it before leaving the room. I could hear the soft sobs as she broke down in a way she was too proud to let happen in my presence. Chapter 101, Imprint Fears. I walked down the hall toward the elevator and pushed the button to call it. While I waited, I was thinking about the whole situation with imprinting. I had held off talking to Edythe about it, mostly because I really didn't think it was a worry for me. I couldn't explain why I thought that, it was just a feeling deep in my bones. Once I got on the elevator and wrote it down, I made my way past the information desk and out the door. I was walking to my truck when I happened to notice the car parked next to me had a familiar figure in its driver's seat. I changed course, and when I reached the driver's window, I rapped it with my knuckle. When it was rolled down, I smiled. "Fancy meeting you here, Leah." She stared at me for a moment with those dark eyes. "I heard you were rushed to the hospital from the reservation yesterday, and I happened to be in the area, so I thought I would check on you." I decided not to call her on the obvious lie. "Oh, that. Nat, it wasn't me. While I was hiking yesterday, I came across a woman who had been attacked by a bear. I did what I could to help her and then drove her this way until we met the ambulance I called." Her expression didn't change, she just kept staring at me. "So," I continued. "The girl is going to be okay, some scarring, and they are monitoring her for blood loss for a couple of days. Then she will be released to go home." She let out a deep sigh. "Well, I am glad it wasn't you that was hurt. I'd better go, we aren't supposed to be here. Something about a doctor the tribe doesn't approve of. See you around." She rolled her window back up and started her car. I moved out of the way and watched her back out and drive away. Then I jumped into my truck and headed to the Cullen house. I walked into the front room of the Cullen house to see Alice and Edythe hovering over the screen of the computer, and approached. When Edythe turned to look at me, I quickly gave her a kiss and turned my attention to the screen. "What are you two troublemakers looking into?" When Alice turned to answer me, I saw a rare look of seriousness on her face. "Trying to narrow down a starting point to look into my past. James spoke of hunting me as a human, but I have no memories of him at all. So, I am trying to backtrack my earliest memories and see if I can learn anything. So far, we think it's somewhere close to the coast along Florida to Louisiana. We have narrowed that down because of the trees and landscape." I placed a hand on her shoulder. "Is there a reason you have never tried to look into this before?" She shook her head. "Not really. I have never really cared until now. My past didn't matter to me. I woke seeing my future and have always looked forward and never back. I wandered for nearly 30 years before my visions finally told me where to meet Jasper. I always knew he was out there, just not where until it was time to meet. Then, 2 years later, we moved in with my family here." Edythe leaned into me. "What are you up to? How was the visit?" I told them about the whole thing, including running into Leah in the parking lot. They were both visibly confused about the imprinting and its effects. "I just wanted to stop in and see if you had any plans for us. I need to shift and talk to Sam, but other than that, I am free for the weekend." Edythe asked, "If you meet up with Sam, I would like to go with you. I am interested in how the imprinting compares to the vampire devotion, for lack of a better word. Naturally, if you go past the border, I can't go, but if he will meet you at the border." "Sure, let's go out back, and I will talk to him. See what he thinks." Edythe followed me as I walked into the woods and stripped to make the change. Edythe whistled appreciatively, and I gave her a wink before pulling in the fire. As soon as I felt all 4 of my feet on the ground, I also felt Sam pushing at my mind. "Hey, Sam. I just got to a place I could shift after leaving the hospital." He quickly asked, "How is she? Is she okay?" Before I could answer him, I heard Edythe suck in a surprised breath. "Thomas." I heard Sam. "I can feel him like he is right next to us." Surprised? I thought, what, and turned my eyes to Edythe beside me. Sam answered my thought. I asked if Emily is okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, she is okay. She was awake when Billy and I visited her. We talked for a while after Billy left. I think she needed someone she could unburden herself to. You have to admit it must really suck to not be able to talk to anyone about it. I talked with her about what you asked me to, and she refused to give you permission. Her words were along the lines of you are not allowed to take the easy route out of this. Also, you are to visit her today. No excuses will be accepted. Sam was silent, but he still conveyed confusion and worry. But I can't change back. Knowing that he needed a kick in the ass. I replied, you will if you want to prove yourself to her. Get control and change back, or admit to her that the imprint isn't that important to you. Thanks, Thomas. For everything. I will find a way to repay you. Then his mind was gone. I quickly changed back, and while I got dressed, I asked. What did you mean you heard him? She was lost in thought for a moment. When you are changed, I can read your mind. When you connected to Sam, I was sort of drug along with you. It was like I was standing next to both of you. She paused again. That imprint he has on his Emily was like. I don't know. It's hard to put it into words. The imprint is like a canvas, and Sam and Emily are the painting. There is nothing he won't do for her. But he isn't mindlessly devoted either. He still has his own thoughts and preferences, but they take a back seat when it comes to Emily. I still can't fully explain it. Maybe if I spent more time with him, I could explain it better. I looked at her with real worry in my eyes. It kind of scares me that it could be in my nature to imprint. What if it is, and for some reason, I can't imprint on you? I truly feel like it isn't a part of me to imprint, but what if I'm wrong? She hugged me tightly. Then you will just have to accept that you will have 2 wives. Because I am not letting you go, and I will live for a very long time. Scene shift. Among snow-capped mountains, inside a cave, a group sat on individual cushions evenly spaced before a man with black hair and a slight orange tinge to his tanned skin. He held a piece of paper in one hand, and as he read, his other hand clenched into a fist. It is confirmed. Somehow, he has changed early. The sole woman who sat before the figure spoke. How is that possible? He isn't 25 summers in the world yet. Another spoke over the woman's question. He was a large man with a full black beard. If he has changed already, then he cannot be bound. The man who sat before everyone continued like he hadn't heard the voices before him. He has also surrounded himself with pishachas. This caused everyone to go silent. Finally, one person asked, what is to be done? He will be called for, this son of Devansh Raizel. And he will stand before the guardian. Then we will decide his fate. The paper in his hand was swiftly crumpled up and tossed aside. Chapter 102, First Year's Payment. Edythe POV. Normally, I hate sunny days. They kept me away from Thomas during school. However, I have to admit that this block of sunny days was a little welcome. Thinking of Thomas brought to my mind the last painting he turned in for his art project. Paint your favorite tree, that was the assignment. After the buzz his last painting caused, I wasn't sure what to expect with this one. Yet he still managed to surprise me. The struggle to not look at his paintings as he worked on them was a true test of my willpower. I even promised to not give him any feedback. I just wanted to see the painting as it grew. But no. He is stubborn about the strangest things. He had turned in not just one tree, but a grove of blooming sakura trees. They surrounded a pond that had a small rowboat in the middle. The faces of the couple on the boat were vague enough to human eyes to be unrecognizable, but to vampire eyes, it was unmistakable that the couple in the boat was me and Thomas. Not even Alice could explain to me how he did it. I already had a place on the wall figured out for it in his house. Well, if he let me hang it there anyway. He was weird about hanging his own art in his house. He said it made him feel self-conscious and a little stuck up. Esme finally finished the house, and to say Thomas was happy would be an understatement. He was a bit overwhelmed, if I was honest about it. Watching him and Esme butt heads over his desire to pay for the work was better than any movie that came out this year. What did we need with money anyway? But again, he actually won the argument. Well, kind of anyway. Esme stood her ground on any reward he tried to give her, but he used that stupid male pride thing to force her to accept the cost of the materials. I had a feeling that it wasn't going to end there. He has been studying Esme and Carlyle very closely lately. It didn't hurt that he had a habit of talking in his sleep occasionally and rambled something about a painting for an anniversary. He had asked me when theirs was, and I provided the date. I was bounced around in my seat a little by some air turbulence. Since I was going to be out of the public eye for a couple days, I decided to check on my work in Denver. I had a promise to keep, after all. I would easily be back in time for the prom dance we were all going to. Me and Edward convinced Alice and Rosalie to allow us to wear outfits from the same time frame. I really wanted my first, true, prom picture to be with me wearing clothes from my time, and Edward had the same thought. I wonder if he had the thought first or if he is copycatting me. They would have to make a dress that would cover Bella's cast, but at least she was in a walking cast now, no need for crutches. Thomas will look so good in the black pants and white tux jacket look, well he looks good in anything. Damn, I miss him already. My lips curled up into a slight smile, good thing I have a ready-made excuse to work out my frustrations. Changing my focus, I thought again about Thomas's worry he could imprint on someone. After witnessing Sam's mind from the inside, I will never be able to let that worry go either. I kept it in the back of my mind, but vampires have a very active memory. Could I accept not being the most important person in Thomas's mind? The fury this thought brought to my mind was a bit maddening the first time I really asked myself the question. But then a thought turned my mind cold and banished all the rage, well turned it to worry, not banishing it. What if he had no room for me in his mind anymore at all? I decided after days of soul searching that if I had a place in his heart still, I could accept just about anything. My mood worsened, so I went back to thinking about the upcoming prom and how happy the whole family was. The only thing slightly out of place, like a long hair tickling your back, was Victoria. We got word that she visited Lauren and the Denali coven. It was surprising to find out that Irina had fallen in love with Lauren, and apparently the feeling was mutual. He turned down Victoria's offer to join her, and when she realized that they would not help her in her revenge against us, she left a few days later. Ugh, why am I worrying about that bug now? Thomas is a little too fixated on her, so I guess that makes me think about her also. But seriously, what can that little thing do to us? Our coven is nearly a rival for the Vulturi, she matters very little. Still, it would be nice to kill her off, so we don't have to worry about her coming after Bella. I know that would make Edward happy. My thoughts continued to jump from subject to subject until Rosalie's voice came across the intercom. We are about 5 minutes from starting our landing at Rocky Mountain Metro, Edythe. I could use you in the co-pilot's seat for the radio. I stood up and entered the cockpit and took my seat. Less than 20 minutes from that point I was stepping out of the plane and into a cloudy Colorado sky. Rosalie went to see the progress on her new line of skincare products that Thomas had given her the idea for, and I took a cab to the seedier side of town. I checked into a hotel that was trying to lead the charge in rehabilitating the area and waited for nightfall. Within the hour, I knew that this hotel was doomed for failure. To change an area and revitalize it, the area first would have wanted it to happen. The denizens that lived in the area wanted it to stay dark and poor, a safe haven from the police. This was a side of town where only the mailman was safe to walk the streets. Anyone hampering his ability to bring the monthly government checks found themselves in the crosshairs of every power in the area. No one wanted that much heat. A couple of hours after nightfall, I left my room and made my way to my target. He was living in the area in an apartment building. he had borrowed the money to afford the rent. I found a good spot to watch his apartment that was only accessible to someone with my abilities and waited. If my timing was correct, he should be on his way home after being fired from his latest job. Downsizing after being taken over by a larger company was a common thing. There was no doubt in my mind that what I was doing to Johnny was illegal, immoral, and all around reprehensible. But that didn't matter one bit to me. He hurt Thomas. Right on time, I thought to myself as I watched a disheveled figure walk down the sidewalk. He was only safe because the local thugs knew he had nothing worth taking. Nothing worth fighting him for anyway. After all, despite how far he had fallen, he could still fight fairly well for a human. I left my hiding spot and followed him from a distance and tensed up as he opened the door. When he turned to close it, I acted. Running as fast as I could, I slammed into the door before he closed it all the way. The impact sent him stumbling back into the wall of his apartment, and I walked through the door, turning to close the door myself. When he recovered enough to stand, he looked around dazed. "What do you want?" "I ain't got nothing worth the time to take it." "Ah, but you do, Johnny boy. But don't worry, you have years to pay it back. 4 years to be exact." He focused on my voice and stared at me, as if trying to remember. You were with that shitty kid. You also resemble one of the bitches who was important at my old job. The little girl with a do not impede notice. What the fuck do you want here? It is so nice to be remembered, Mr. Track. Now, calling you Mr. leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Well. Time for your first installment of pain you caused others. Well, that's what I'm calling it anyway. What the fuck are you talking about, you stupid bitch? Get out of my house before you get hurt. He walked towards me and grabbed my left arm with his right hand. He tried to push me toward the door, but all his strength couldn't move me an inch. He looked at me in confusion, and I gave him a full mouth smile. So, it's the arm first, hey. As I said that, I reached over to his right arm and gave it a slight twist. The loud crack that came from his arm seemed to surprise him. Seconds later, his body sent the signal of just what happened to his brain, and he screamed in pain. It wasn't a loud scream, not for this area. Which was good because we had a lot more to do before I would be satisfied. He held his arm up to look at the damage, but as the bone didn't break the skin, he couldn't see anything. While he was doing that, I reached out and ran my finger along his bottom rib on his right side. Finding the spot I wanted, I gave it a quick push with my index finger and felt it snap. The sound was quickly followed by more screaming, this time in a higher pitch. Good thing none of your neighbors are home. Well, one is, but he is passed out from a heroin high. You know, I just realized. I know Thomas had 3 broken ribs, but were they all on one side, or were they spread out? I will have to just wing it this year. I will be better prepared next year. I jabbed out with my index finger at his top right rib and hit it a little too hard. When it broke, it punctured the lung. Oops, pushed a little hard that time. Well, let's call that interest. Please take short breaths so you stay conscious for the rest of this. Okay. This was a bit harder than I thought it would be. I wanted it to be precise, but this is just messy. Well, live and learn, I smiled to myself. One more rib to go. Just for variety, let's get one on the left side. His next scream had a gurgle in it, there must be some blood in his right lung. I will have to do that one last next year. Johnny fell to his butt, and I was happy he cooperated by doing that himself. It would have been a pain to break his leg while he stood up. I reached down and rapped my knuckle on his shin, breaking the tibia. He was crying at this point and begging me to stop. Look at you, Thomas had it right, you are pathetic. He suffered all these wounds because of you in that mall shooting, and he was 14. Now you know a small amount of his pain from that day, well his physical pain anyway, I could never cause you to feel his mental pain. You are lucky for that. But as I have been pounding into your brain, you will feel this pain every year for the next 3 years before I think of stopping." As the horror of my words broke through the pain he was feeling, he panted, "I will tell everyone it was you that did it. I will even say Thomas was here helping you." I laughed a genuine laugh, and then stared into his eyes. "You will only remember it was me that did this in your dreams, you will forget it was me while you are awake. But you will remember that it was because of the mall shooting that it happened, I will leave you that memory." I continued to use my compulsion power. "Now call 911 and ask for an ambulance, and tell them you fell down some stairs. You will forget everything I told you to forget in 1 minute." As he called the ambulance, I waited until he hung up and reached for his arm. This isn't quite the break Thomas had, his bone broke through the skin. I made the break worse and watched as he passed out from the pain. I opened the door and calmly walked out, my gloves making sure there was no way I would be identified for being in the area. I wonder if my prints are even in the system? I should look into that one day. After I got to a better part of town, I hailed a taxi and had it drive me to the Oxford Hotel, where Rosalie would be waiting for me. "See you again next year, Johnny." Chapter 103, Rohan Smith. Thomas POV. The last week of school is finally here. Next year is going to be interesting. Bella and I have some extra options due to the school curriculum differences between here and Phoenix. We have 4 more credits in our files because of some advanced classes we took in our last school. Bella talked the school into letting her drop gym class all next year and use those credits for replacement so she would graduate in normal time, but I haven't decided what to do yet. I am obviously not going to let them go to waste, but should I use them to skip a semester, graduate early, or maybe just cut out a class for the year like Bella? Decisions. Speaking of which, how soon can I move out of Charlie's to my own house without being rude about it? I am really looking forward to living in my own house, where I don't have to hide how much Edythe is around. When I thought about Edythe, my mind went back to prom. The way she glowed through the whole thing was a wonderful sight. She confided in me that she finally felt like she was living a life, instead of going through the motions. It was also nice to see Bella and Edward dancing together. Edward was skilled enough to make sure Bella stayed upright on the dance floor. Even when they went out back for some intense talk, they came back still clutching each other's hands. Bella had that stubborn set to her chin again, so I knew to keep my nose out of the conversation for now. What surprised me was that Edward had a determined look in his eyes that suggested the conversation was far from over between the two. Edythe told me she had seen Jacob there, but he must not have stuck around long because when I went looking, he was gone. I shook the thoughts from my mind as I walked down the hall and stopped to see the latest paintings from Alice, and I hanging on the wall. The last draw had been free choice. Both of us were free to choose what we wanted to paint. I went with a nice desert landscape from memories of my time in Phoenix, and Alice went with an image she remembered from her first year of memories. Hers was a building that looked like a small school or hospital surrounded by moss-covered willow trees. They were both beautiful in their opposites, though Alice's conveyed a sense of hopelessness and despair to me. Mrs. Ross even thought we had worked with each other, but we really hadn't. Our choices were purely our own. The class was an easy A+, but so were all the other classes. My thoughts were interrupted by a couple of girls discussing the latest scandal to hit the school. It was rumored that Lauren was pregnant and would have to skip next year to have her kid. I would have brushed it off as gossip if Lauren herself hadn't come to me in desperation for Johnny's contact information. I gave her what I had, but it turned out to be only his last known address and employer. He seemed to have dropped off the face of the earth after that. I looked no further into that, because I wanted nothing to do with it. When I entered the lunchroom, I walked straight to the Cullen table and took my seat next to Edythe. As soon as I sat down, Emmett started to bombard me with questions. "So, what do you have planned for this summer, Thomas? Surely you won't just stay at home with Edythe, where none of her brothers can chaperone her?" I laughed. "I haven't decided just yet, Emmett. I do want to spend as much time with Edythe as I can, and as far as a chaperone goes. Well, that's up to Edythe as well. That reminds me, Edythe's birthday is June 20th. Alice let me know she loved my gift, but I don't know what it is. Now I'm nervous about the gift. I haven't even thought to give her yet. My usual go-to is a painting, but that doesn't feel right this time. I need something more. I don't know, just something more. We continued to joke around and cover random topics as I stealthily cleared all the food on the table. It helped that Jasper moved faster than anyone not paying attention could see. After lunch, I went about my day as normal, and once school was over, Edythe and I drove home to Charlie's house. I was surprised to see the police chief's car in the driveway with a black sedan behind it. I parked in front of the house, behind Bella's truck. With Edward driving her everywhere, Red wasn't getting much use anymore. My surprise was because Charlie didn't usually beat us home. Edythe must have been thinking the same thing, because she looked at me with a raised eyebrow. I just shrugged and we headed inside. Once inside, I called out, "Hey Charlie, you are home early, and what's with the rental car behind your cruiser?" Charlie's reply came from the kitchen. "In the kitchen, Thomas. Is Edythe with you?" "Hey, Charlie," was Edythe's reply. Once we entered the kitchen, my eyes were drawn to a figure sitting with his back to us. Charlie stood up and gestured toward the stranger. "Actually, he is here to meet you. He came to the station because he wanted me to make the introductions." The man stood up and turned to face me, also looking over Edythe at the same time. "I am Rohan Smith. I have come from the Jiva's home, near the Langtang district in Nepal. You have reached the age where it was finally appropriate to approach you. I thought to make the introductions easier if I first met your guardian." Edythe drew in a deep breath and brought her hand to her head. It was a familiar action I recognized from when she tried to read my mind in our first class together. I reached for her. "Are you okay, Edythe?" She nodded, "Yeah, just a headache like I haven't had since first meeting you." Took me by surprise. No way she forgot and tried to look into my head. "So, I assume this guy has the same protection as I do to her gift. He says he is from the same place as my dad, could he be like me? You said it was now appropriate to meet me. What do you mean?" He took his time to answer as if deciding what to say. "If someone of the tribal blood who was not brought into the tribe by ritual before the age of 5 is found, they cannot be brought in until they have reached the age of majority." Before I could ask for a better explanation, Charlie's radio broke the rhythm of the conversation. "Hey, Chief, Joey and Paul are at it again. We just got a call about them fighting behind the hardware store. You want to take it, or should I send Jeff?" Charlie grabbed the radio and replied, "I am closer. Be there in minutes." "You got it, Chief." Rohan moved to the door. "Let me get my car out of your way. I will return promptly, Mr. Raizel." Then Charlie followed him out, but not before saying, "Listen to what he has to say, but don't take anything at face value. It's too neat, your family showing up all of a sudden. If they had your welfare in their interest, they would have reached out before now. You can trust, but verify." Once Charlie was out the door, I turned to Edythe. "Was it the same as with me? Is he a shifter?" She took a second to answer. "It was different, not quite as painful as with you. But more than that, I think he reached into my mind, too. It kind of felt like when Edward and I communicate." I was a bit lost in thought as Rohan entered the open door and closed it behind him. "I would imagine you have many questions for me, Mr. Raizel. But I do not recommend that your Pishage try to enter my mind again." Edythe was quick to speak. "It was not a conscious choice, I can't always control it." "I am sorry." Rohan looked her directly in the eyes. "You entered with intent. I know because I took your ability and returned it. Do not lie to me again." Edythe